Well, good evening, YouTube land, everybody. Welcome. What's up, Matt? How are you doing this evening?
How y'all? I had a double audio coming in. I mute one of them. Doing good. Surviving here in the People's Republic of New Jersey fairly well.
Good. Admiral Teag, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. And hey, it's at least I feel bad for Matt, but not so bad because I know he lives within the habitable pizza zone. So this is going to be an all East Coast cowboy thing, unless Jacob Ironside has some sort of Western provenance.
Oh yes. I'm in Texas.
All right, so we got that, and with that we proceed forward. But hey, let's remember some of the coolest cowboys started out on the East Coast, right?
If I ever have to leave the pizza zone, I will export the water with me.
Yeah, it's the water that makes the pizza so good. And how many Westerns are fought over water rights?
Probably a lot, even though we don't show it on screen.
Yeah. One of mine is one of my movies is there's a fight over water rights, and it's specifically mentioned. So yeah.
Are you talking about Chinatown, or are you talking about one of your Westerns?
One of my Westerns.
Didn't Kevin Costner or what Mel Gibson do a Western that was fought over water rights?
I don't think it was Costner.
I don't know.
And there was something about a river flooding.
About a water world.
No, there was something about a river flooding. The family built land, and then someone wanted to move a river basically, and they moved it and washed out their land.
It's possible you're thinking about Pale Rider.
No, that's not Pale Rider, because there was no scene of the family being washed out in a giant river flooding their land in Pale Rider.
I think they do weaponize the water on the miners, but I don't remember. That movie is good, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if y'all want to,
here we are to talk about our favorite Westerns. Hey,
yeah. If y'all want to briefly talk about TV Westerns,
we'll start with the TV. I'll tell you my favorites, and my favorite TV Westerns: The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams, Justified, 1883, 1923, and Longmire.
We have one in common. We have an overlap.
Nice. I do like Bonanza. I have a kind of honorable mention for because I watched it with my little brother for like years, But some of the older Westerns, like I watched a lot of the older TV Westerns, like like Rawhide and The Virginian and all that. But I'd never want to watch them again per se. You know what I mean? Whereas the ones I mentioned here, I want to watch again if I haven't watched them again already.
Right. Yeah. T, what about you? Your favorite TV Westerns?
Okay, well, first of all, hello to CLS Studio and Melvin Deeply, and I thank you both. And that damn duck that keeps following me to every one of my streams. You know what? I'm going to say Western TV shows. I have a soft spot for a show called Branded. Some episodes were written by Gene Roddenberry.
That's such an awesome show.
It was a black and white show. Yeah, it begins with one of the most dramatic sequences we could imagine in a Western. It starred Chuck Connors, who most people might remember being a professional baseball player for the Brooklyn and then LA Dodgers, and then also being in Roots, which is a major television event. And he was Chicken George's father in that one. But Chuck Connors and sometimes it was written by Gene Roddenberry. It was quite good. It only lasted about 3 seasons, but it was real good. 1923 is in there. It is real good. I'm sorry, you had a thought on Branded. Go ahead.
It had one of the most kick butt theme songs, like Branded, scorned as the one who ran. Like I could sing it in my head. That's
what do you do when you're branded? When you fight? Wait, what do you do when you're branded? But and you're a man.
Yep.
Well, yeah, Branded. The show sort of starts, but I don't think they ever cover the incident that causes him to become branded. So the theme song does. And what they do is the theme song and this was a 60s thing. They bring you up to speed in the theme song. It's like all but one man died there at Bitter Creek, and they say he ran away. Of the men who died and General Reed, he could never tell the truth. It's all very dramatic. I could sing you the song, but it would take like 2.5 minutes. They play like this long drum roll, military drums, snare drums. They tear all the insignias off his uniform and they throw him out of the fort. Sometimes he's a bounty hunter. Sometimes he's just a drifter. And then every once in a while, it's like Wild Wild West, and he's like a government agent who works for Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah, that was one of the early westerns that was actually very serial in nature, meaning it had an ongoing plot. They do refer back to the incident, like because there are people who know he was screwed. It was fracked over, so to speak. That
one or two people know that General Reed was insane.
Yeah, and that he's taking the hit for something he didn't do because he's a survivor of Bitter Creek.
Because it was a Civil War battle where he was extremely loyal to Reed.
Yeah. And Grant wants to pardon him. I don't know if it gets to the. I don't remember. I haven't watched it in years.
They hold off his pardon, and he doesn't want it, so that he can continue to work undercover for the government in a multi-episode arc. And I think they do it more than once. You can tell your seasons of branded of. There's 2 of the Pompadour and 1 with a waxed down Caesar where he looks super mod.
See, now you're making me knock one of mine out of my 5 because I'm.
But then, so 1923 is on there. Best acting I've seen from Harrison Ford this century. No kidding. Best acting I've seen from Harrison Ford this century, bar none. Really, bar none. Thinking more along the lines of TV. I mean, Bonanza was a mainstay for so many years, but it just runs the gamut of quality. So it's like kind of have to leave that alone as its own beast. So I'll say, Gunsmoke. And that I might keep it at that. It's about 3 or 4 westerns that I really loved. And hey, The Lone Ranger, but that was not a show so much as they showed the old movies on TV.
Yeah,
right.
Remember that.
But I would just say those movies that were made to be serials that The Mandalorian is based on are of a somewhat higher quality and somewhat better writing than The Mandalorian.
You make me remember the Guns of Will Sonnet.
That used to come on right after Brandon in our area, and that's why you know that show, because Brandon would come on first, and then Guns of Will Sonnet would come on, and then the Special K would start to wear off, and you'd be able to go to sleep. But yeah, the Guns of Will Sonnet. Also, we never see the inciting incident that begins it. So we have Walter Brennan from a million movies. He's in To Have and Have Not, for God's sake. And he just talk about the original rapper. He sort of sings the ballad of the Guns of Will Sonnet. It's like, so we search Will's boy and me. It's like Will Sonnet, I guess, doesn't know he has a son or something. And he had to go run away for some reason, although he's really tough and brave. But it was a good show. It was fun to watch.
Well, the premise that the son is a like the father was a famous but good guy gunfighter, but the son, James Sonnet, I think he's a notorious gunfighter, like on the better side of things. And the boy who we left home to be raised by the grandpa, they obviously want to find the dad. That's the premise of the Guns of Will Sonnet,
Right. And the grandfather he's with is the non-gunfighter grandfather, like the mother's grandfather or something.
Well, no, Will Sonnet has a background as like a kind of like a soldier gunfighter type. Like I don't remember the whole details, but he's not like a bad guy like his son is.
Right. No, that's Will Sonnet is none other than Stacy Keach. And so his son is Dak Rambo and the father is Walter Brennan. I think Walter Brennan is a non-gunfighter in this. He's just a tough old cowboy.
No, Will Sonnet is Walter Brennan. The son is James.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. Because I thought that was my dad's name for a long time, so I found it wasn't. So I kind of remember that.
Walter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we got Walter Jack Palance, one of the greatest cowboy actors of all time. What a great segue.
Yeah.
How about you, Jacob? Cowboy TV shows of late. And by the way, I do have an appetite for the other Yellowstone shows. I can't wait to see some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. The newest one is Longmire. That's the newest one I've liked and seen. Wagon Train, Virginian, Gunsmoke. I think that's about it. The Rifleman, another Chuck Connors.
Oh God, yeah.
The
Western.
Rifleman, yeah, that one is a little bit actually. My problem with the Rifleman is that he like blows away people in front of his kid every week.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to call him a good father when he could have just been like, maybe son, you shouldn't be around here. And the son is in a Star Trek movie. That's Scotty's nephew from Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Chief Ensign's mate, Peter Prescott.
Peter Prescott, yeah. Was he the kid in Escape from Witch Mountain too?
I think so. I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
It tracks in age. Hey, Melvin Deeply. Thank you for joining us. And hello, Zax. Hey, do us a favor. YouTube really loves this, and you'd be helping out Jacob. Hit the like and follow buttons, of course. But the other like neat trick, and like YouTube loves this. Please tweet out the stream. Just let people know we're around, because some people might want to hear it talk about some of our favorite westerns. I almost narrowed it down to 10.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe we should get on with our list. So do we have any particular order for this? Or you have some particular shows to catch us up on. Did you have any other westerns that you wanted to mention? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I got an idea. Since I guess Clint Eastwood and John Wayne are going to be in a lot of our lists, let's talk about our non-Clint Eastwood and John Wayne films first. Because we'll probably overlap on the Clint Eastwood and John Wayne film. We'll probably overlap quite a bit, I would guess.
Okay.
There's I think I got to just about the 10, and there's 2 Clints on there that I can think of offhand. Right, just looking at them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go ahead. You do your first one.
Shall I rattle off the whole list? Okay, so my list is more or less in order of release. So westerns are the oldest kind of movies. Yeah. No, I'm not going to rattle them all off.
Okay.
So I'll go in order of release. Westerns are the oldest movies, right? Like some of the oldest things that they did. The West existed at the birth of motion pictures, and we're talking non-sound, hand-cranked, Nickelodeon. Seeing people do things like rope a steer was pretty interesting for some person in New York, right? So these are some of the oldest motion pictures we have, and sci-fi is pretty old too. But the Western might be the oldest, aside from Thomas Edison blows up an elephant. But how about this one? Are you guys familiar with John Wayne and is it John Huston who does them? Or John Ford, the Cavalry series She Wore a Yellow Ribbon is the one with Henry Fonda and John Wayne. That one is really, really good. A young Shirley Temple, I believe it's Maureen O'Hara, is the girlfriend. So there's a really good military cavalry style song that gets you all psyched up for the beginning of this movie that starts with horses charging towards the camera. The cinematography is absolutely fantastic. Is this one Technicolor? It's black and white, right? They're all black and white.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all black and white. It's a great movie. It's got a great plot. We're out on the edge of nowhere. We're at an extreme Western fort. We've got a leftover European-style general who didn't get as much fame as he wanted in the Civil War in the form of Hank Fonda, and he's going to drag everyone along with him on this crazy expedition where he's going to try to do some punitive stuff to the local Indians. And there is a situation going on where the Indians are being corrupted and given liquor by the Indian authority. And there's also several good, fun fistfights among the cavalry members. Miles O'Keefe, I think or whatever his name is, the stalwart sergeant character that we see in so many John Wayne movies. He's kind of a stout guy. He's in The Quiet Man as well. He plays the brother-in-law. Yeah, we have him in it, and his son has gone to West Point and become an officer, and it's a disgrace to the family because they should be sergeants, and like they're all Army all the way through, and these are characters that were like larger than life and heroic, and John Wayne has some complexity to him. He's the colonel kind of running the fort when the Thursby character played by Hank Fonda shows up. and he sort of wants to military up this fort on the edge of nowhere. And John Wayne's kind of like, we got things running pretty good the way we got them. Maybe you should just do your thing back here at the fort. Maybe make a duty roster like, they taught you back at fancy Western school. Back east at West Point. Because John Wayne, the assumption is not only did he fight in the Civil War, but he's been out west since the end of it. And we're getting to a point of being maybe 10 or 15 years out based on their ages from the war. And the Indians give them just enough provocation. The causal reason is that they're being given liquor and guns that they shouldn't be given by the corrupt Indian authority, if I remember correctly. All the fun stuff, fights off base. Then we go on this punitive expedition. We find out that the Indians have set up an absolute trap for our cavalry there. And it comes down to John Wayne and Henry Fonda going toe-to-toe in an adversarial talk-off about the lives of 500 cavalry troopers that John Wayne dearly wants to save. And I won't spoil the end. But what a fantastic movie. A young, hot Shirley Temple. I guess she's not on heroin yet, but she looks really good. And we also have Maureen O'Hara and countless other luminaries.
Yeah, Fort Apache, is that the one?
Am I maybe confusing Fort Apache with She Wore a Yellow Ribbon?
Yeah.
Okay, the one with Hank Fonda. All right, yeah, Fort Apache is the best one. John Wayne has risen up to the point of being a colonel. These things span like 12 years. These cavalry trilogy, and I don't think it's an intentional trilogy. And at no point is John Wayne the same person as he was in the movie before. But at no point is he ever anyone but the person he was in the movie he was before. The backstory always is the same. The things and traits of characteristics of John Wayne never change. But as he ages a little, I guess he goes from like an ornery sergeant to an ornery captain to an ornery colonel.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
At the beginning,
that whole series too.
He was maybe more salty, but he had some optimism on every level of command. I just wanted to say that. Sorry. I'm very sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and all those John Wayne movies are great.
Yeah.
Especially the cavalry movies are great.
And when Jacob and I did the John Ford movies, we noticed the funny thing is John Wayne never got any Oscar nominations for anything he did with John Ford. Like it's only his movies did separate that he got the Oscars for. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I think there was a kind of, first of all, like no one cared enough to campaign for one for the longest time. They became a thing in like the 50s and 60s. And John Wayne, a lot of that work is in like the 30s and 40s. The Cavalry trilogy starts about 1941, right? And they rounded out around 1952 or 3 when they finished the last one. I think it's a few years between each one, and maybe the war breaks it up.
Yeah, I think so. Matt, what is your first one?
Non-John Wayne, non-Clint Eastwood ones, because there might be overlap. So my first pick would be a movie that.
Oh damn, John Wayne was in mine. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, that's why I'll say the non-ones first, just way in case you guys cover them. We don't have to repeat, So my first film is something that a lot of little boys probably loved and have fond and bittersweet memories of. Shane.
Yes.
Shane, it had a fairly simple plot. A homesteader and his wife and his son. He gets killed because of some greedy, cattle barons, basically. And this is the conflict between people moving to the West and for the freedom of claiming land versus those who are already there, which you actually see in 1883 and 1923 quite a bit of this sort of conflict play out. And Shane is a famous gunfighter. He after the dad is killed, Shane shows up and basically helps the family out. And again, it's fairly simple plot, but the little boy's father. But the meta plot is the little boy's father has died, and he sees Shane as a sort of surrogate father. And
no, Van Johnson survives the movie.
I remember the father being dead.
No, you might be confusing it with the part where Walter Jack Palance just guns down in the street Cogby from Star Trek Court Martial, the guy who had fought for the Confederacy, and he starts taunting him about it.
Okay,
and he
yeah.
taunts him until he blows him away.
Yeah.
What happens is Shane is what you say he is, and the movie, you could turn off the sound on this or just lose the dialogue on this movie, and it would be just as good because it's very clear cut and it's very beautifully filmed. I don't know how they got the opening shot of Shane. Just and I'll hand it back to you. We see a deer drinking from a pool of water with other Western deer, and they have a particularly wet southwestern appearance. I don't know if the deer are different down there, but they look kind of rough and grizzled. These are tough deer. And when it looks up, as the shot moves back, the deer lifts its head up out of the water, and the horns frame Shane as he rides into frame, straight through the horns of the deer. So we're talking like some absolutely fantastic filmmaking here. And Shane he has a shadowy past, but what he does is he's kind of looking to like maybe leave the violence behind him to a degree. And he stays with this more traditional family of ranchers, and he helps them make their farm a little more profitable and a little less of a drag, and improves it with them over the course of a season. And that's when the cattle baron comes to town. He starts threatening people and shoving them around. They kill a couple of people. And that's when we find out Shane goes into his room and he pulls out some stuff that maybe you wouldn't expect that this sort of, normal guy who's been rooming with them had, a couple of revolvers. He's got his Clint Eastwood gear, and he sort of Batmans himself up, so to speak, puts on like his tough guy gunslinger outfit, goes to town, and he's like, I'm Shane, and you fucking pissed me off. I'm sorry. And you pissed me off. I'm sorry. I wouldn't do it again. That was the only curse of this episode.
All right.
Yeah. So you're right. It was the other guy who died, but so Shane, okay, I'll get back on what I was saying today. So this is like we were talking about, like with the Will Sonic, the good guy gunfighters and bad guy gunfighters. Like the good guy gunfighters are still criminals, they're still vigilantes, but in the Wild West, where there was like one marshal for every territory and one judge for, like you needed people to sort of fight for their rights, as it were, fight for their survival. And so Shane was trying. The premise of this film was this is near the end of that era when you had those sort of good guy vigilantes who were needed, and the presence of law was expanding, and so the government was taking control of the territories, as it were. And this is why the ending of the film is iconic, is that they did this on purpose, symbolize that the era of the gunfighter was ending. Like that's how the film sort of picked up on it. And
anyone who saw Open Range, it's the same like set of circumstances.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's been 50 years, so I think we can talk about it now.
Yeah.
The end of the film is Shane with a fairly minor gunshot wound riding off into the sunset with the little boy crying out, Shane, come back, Shane. And it's supposed to symbolize that Shane himself knows he can't be part of the lifestyle that's been created there. So he has to go off and be on his own again. And a lot of people say, well, Shane died. Well, Shane had a minor gunshot wound. If Shane died from that gunshot wound, he died because he chose to die, not because he was going to die.
Shane had been through worse, was the impression you got. And I would just say this, Shane, I don't know if he necessarily left to die, but I'll say this, like he had two choices. He could go off in the woods and just succumb to his wounds, or he could Rambo himself. And there's nothing to say Shane didn't just go to the next town and start on a fresh page and just work the land like he wanted to and be somebody's farmhand and just make enough money to eat and be left alone and live out his life. Maybe he's like, I came here, and maybe I was sent here to protect these people. And now that I'm known, people are going to come looking for Shane. I'll try again somewhere else.
So
but if you come and you act unjust, he's going to turn into Shane. You know what I mean?
I think the symbolism is that Shane knows he himself can't have that lifestyle that he wanted by being with those people, and that if he did settle anywhere else, it would be by himself, like kind of like Grizzly Adams had to, because in the middle of nowhere where no one else is around, type of thing. Like he knows he can't have a family because that past is going to come back and haunt him, because someone's going to come looking for him, type of thing. Well,
I think Shane has a clean slate with the law. It's just that he's a known gunfighter who's prevailed in like And in the Old West, people could do this. He's prevailed in like 15 sanctioned gunfights where the sheriffs have cleared him. So it's just like,
Well,
now
it's
people
it's
come
really more
looking
that they
for
look the
Shane.
other way. You know what I mean? Like he's not on the run from the law, but that doesn't mean people won't come looking for him for revenge. You know,
That there's people looking for him for revenge, and also there's still a few people out there looking to make their bones a la Unforgiven.
Yep. Yeah. So that's my
And the Shootist too with John Wayne has a lot of those
what a great movie!
tropes too.
What a great movie! Oh, what a great movie! Isn't it a shame that he gave his best performance in his very last role? It is absolutely the best performance that we ever get from John Wayne in any role, anywhere. A dying man playing a dying man who wants to die, who wants to get it over with, who's sick of the bullshit. What was he like on set with his determination? And then the character just chugging down fucking what was it like pure laudanum or something like that, and boozing his way to get through this. Oh man, what a
the interesting about that film is that wasn't intended to be a film like that with an old dying
and this is my
gunfighter.
movie too.
It was originally they wanted to cast a younger guy for the role, and they couldn't get anyone they liked. And then Wayne, who's obviously dying in real life at the time because of cancer and all, took the role on. They changed it to reflect this, to have the character reflect the same thing, like you said. And like I don't know. I mean, I think he has one or two other equal acting performances in his past, but I don't want to quibble over it. But the movie itself
he's
transformed.
been powerful in other roles, yes, but he was. This was one captivating performance.
Yeah, well, this movie got transformed into a sort of just like how when Johnny Cash covered the song "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails, how the song became transformed into expressing his dying of cancer and all the regrets he's had and all that. Did this film happen that same way? That this film got transformed into sort of John Wayne's swan song, if you will, with him dying and all that. You know, it's
well, thank God he made one more cowboy movie after The Cowboys, where he has the murderous bunch of children gunning people down, because that wouldn't have been a good way to end his career.
Yep.
I mean, just look at the people in this.
This was a
James
made-for-TV
Stewart,
movie,
John
I think.
Wayne, Richard Boone.
This was, also Lauren Bacall, one of two movies
Ron
that they're in together. Yep, Ron Howard.
Harry Morgan's in there.
The only other movie with John Wayne and Lauren Bacall is Red River from 1956.
Yeah, I think he's done films with John Carradine before. Didn't we talk about that? How Carradine was in a bunch of John Ford films.
I'm not sure. He probably was, but this comes to mind. You know, his end game in this movie is basically Gran Torino.
Yeah.
His end game in this movie is absolutely Gran Torino. He's like, I've spent a life running away from who I am, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put out a beacon that John Book is here in this town, waiting for all to take on any comers. So people just show up and they're like, yeah, Book, we don't like you. And he's like, all right, well, let's have it out, you low life. And I think he kills a couple of people before someone finally manages to get him. And he's got cancer really bad in the character. And so he's like looking to lose these gunfights he has a more involved plan than Gran Torino. He wants to lure these people into gunfights where he kills them, but he gets shot up enough to die. Like he wants to fight them to a draw.
Yeah,
it's a kamikaze attack.
Yeah.
He gets the three guys that are gunning for him, and he gets shot by the bartender.
And then Ron Howard shoots the bartender.
But I do like how Howard drops the gun, like he's not going to adopt that lifestyle type of thing. Which this is another film like
because it was the right thing to do for John Wayne.
Yeah, we were just talking about this with Shane. This is another one, end of the gunfighter era type of stories. You know where the gunfighter era is over, and John Wayne doesn't want Opie. I'm always going to call Ron Howard Opie to the day I die.
It doesn't last
Opie to
very
become
long.
a gunfighter. So
the era of the gunfighter doesn't last very long if you think about it, right? Yeah. Serviceable, usable, gunfightable guns, right? Like forget about two people with two pirate style pistols fighting in the street in 1835, which happened, but the age of the gunfighter is brief. I would say it's from the end of the Civil War till about 1885, because at that point, with railroads and other things, they start to really impose a little bit of law and order, and the telegraph is able to coordinate law enforcement against, anybody who gets going too good. And it takes until the era of the gangster and the automobile and Bonnie and Clyde before you have people acting this way again, and that's why people supported them.
Well, because of the politics of the Civil War, what led into the Civil War, with the question of what all the new territories, would they be free or slave states and all that nonsense, that the federal government couldn't really put too much control over those territories, and the territories themselves were fighting over those issues. So after the Civil War, like you said, that's when they could really begin to assert authority. And that's when the era, and over the course of that 20, 30 years after the Civil War, that's when the gunfighter era starts to decline,
Well, also, we got to remember this. Yeah. It would be really ridiculous for us to stand in the street and pull out two, very low accuracy single action weapons where I pulled back the hammer and fired, we both tried to do it at the same time, and then we're both turning the cylinder with our finger, you know what I mean? Or like I pull out a pepper box that has like 6 barrels and just fire all of them at you at once and hope I get you. And the era of the gunfighter, we have to get to a point in technology where you have an effective single action pistol. And I guess once you get into the double action pistols, those guys, who got the first ones of those are going to be the best gunfighters of all, because you don't have to cock the hammer. And, Alec Baldwin should have known that.
Yeah, right. Also, another TV Western comes to mind that was a fun one, was the, what is it? Paladin? Is it Paladin?
Oh, yeah.
Have Gun Will Travel.
Have Gun Will Travel.
Have Gun Will Travel. That's right.
Yep.
I'm not overly familiar with that, but I understand that Gene Roddenberry wrote some of that too.
Well, that was his before he did Star Trek. His claim to fame was like writing and working on westerns. So, yeah,
they would bring him in for like the better episodes of a lot of these shows.
Yeah,
his episode of his 2 or 3 episode arc of Branded is really good. I think he writes some Mission Impossible too, but I don't know.
Okay, T, what's your next one? Next Western.
Next one I put on my list. So I kind of tried, like I said, I tried to kind of go through the decades here. How about this one for the 60s? I really like Butch and Sundance. It's very different. It's the kind of cowboy movie we were only going to make during the Vietnam War. It was very different. The idea that Butch and Sundance get out of America to continue the worst of their crime streak so they're not fighting American soldiers takes a lot of pressure off this story that was released in 1969. You know what I mean? Like, tempers sort of flaring high over a rather unpopular conflict in this nation at that time known as the Vietnam War. So, we're able to sort of, in Butch and Sundance, get as far away from that as we can. And it starts out with one of the greatest 20-minute opening scenes where we kind of see a day's work in the life of Butch and Sundance interrupted by this super posse that comes after them. And they are just hard-pressed to get away. And I guess we'll just say that one of the most famous scenes in any Western ever is, and they stole it for Star Trek Into Darkness. Damn the J.J. Abrams for doing it. But Butch and Sundance, they run away and they fail to run away well. And then they try to run away again and they screw that up. Then they try to hide and they can't pull that off. So then they run like hell as fast as they can in a straight line until they end up over a river on a cliff. Like, what do you guys think? 210 feet, something like that?
Yeah.
And these guys are up. These guys are bearing down on them, and they've gone from being in control of the situation to having absolutely no control of what's going on in only about 15 or 20 minutes of this strong opening of this movie. And it's just we even talked about this, their conversation with the clerk on the railroad. They'd robbed that railroad so many times. The clerk knew them. He had a special procedure for dealing with just them. They were trying to tell him to give it up, or they'd blow up the train with him inside. So he finally decides to get out. And like idiots, they blow up the money because they underestimate how much dynamite to put in there. And So they botched everything. Their gang, I guess, gets cut off from them, and the two of them are just like hard pressed for these first 20 minutes to just like stay ahead of these pursuers, and like they're looking back through like binoculars or telescopes or whatever it would be, and it's like one after another, they're like, I think that guy is, and like they basically name an all-star team of badass gunfighters, and they're like, well, we're not going to beat these freaking guys. What do we do? And it, in this great scene that is just one continuous shot. I mean, it's not our actors, but they kind of look at each other and it's like, we got to jump off this cliff. And he's like, I can't jump off this cliff. And he's like, you'll survive. Don't worry. And he's like, no, it's that I can't swim. And he's like, oh, shut up. And they both run they don't jump. They run off that cliff screaming like madmen. And they just go flying off the edge. And it's very Indiana Jones to lack any other context. And hey, and the fugitive sort of in there, and they survive. And, the movie goes on, or it would be a 21-minute movie. That would still be awesome. But Butch and Sundance and their friendship. I love that. You need friendship in a really good Western, unless it's about a loner.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that loner's one friend is the person that the movie revolves around. Like at the end of Unforgiven, when he's a loner again.
Yeah. And interesting casting too. They originally tried to get Steve McQueen for Redford's character.
I can see why.
Role.
McQueen is in one of my movies. He's a great Western actor.
There was a thing. They wanted to get Steve McQueen and Paul Newman in the same movie for the longest time. And I don't know, there's a 1970s TV disaster movie called The Towering Inferno that I love.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most star-studded movies you'll ever see is on TV. It was a TV movie. And was that the only time they ever got them in the same movie at the same time? But for like 10 years, they wanted McQueen and Newman to do movies together, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I think that movie went out of fashion after August of 2001, to put it in a very succinct manner.
Yeah. No, there's still been a couple disasters since then, but what's gone out of fashion though? The amount of movies in the past 15 years, you get one star, maybe two if you're lucky now. You know what I mean? Like prior to like 2005 though, we would get 2 or 3 films a year where we'd have like loads and loads of big name actors all in this film. The
Western lends itself to that.
Yeah, well,
the Western can lend itself to that.
All sorts of dramas did too, but war movies and Westerns especially lent themselves to it.
Young Guns from the 90s works because of that same element. We've got a whole bunch of people. We throw them into a movie together, and maybe only Charlie Sheen has a movie in him by himself, and they get rid of him like way up front. No spoiler there.
Yeah. Tombstone, another film from that era. Black Hawk Down, another. So go watch Black Hawk Down now, and you'll recognize every single actor in that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might not recognize Orlando Bloom because he looks so different because he's young and he's got a crew cut. But yeah, everyone in it did something. But you might not recognize Orlando Bloom, and he does a good American accent.
Yeah, he's not in it very long, so
he's the guy who gets everyone and starts the incident off.
The broken back guy
misses the rope.
He's the guy who misses the rope.
Oh, yep. Matt, what is your next?
So my next, non-John Wayne, non-Clint Eastwood film is The Magnificent Seven. So that is an authorized remake of The Seven Samurai. It is probably the best remake of The Seven Samurai, right? And which, funny enough, when The Seven Samurai was released in the U.S., it was called The Magnificent Seven. Interesting enough. They got who we got here? Steve McQueen, we just talked about, is in here. Charles Bronson, Yul Brynner, Robert Vaughn, James Coburn. Who played the other 2 guys? I don't even remember them all. Eli Wallach was one of the bad guys.
Yul Brynner, Charles Bronson.
Try to remember
Eli Wallach.
The young Mexican guy has the most incongruous name. He's German. He's got a German name.
Yeah.
He's just a really good actor. He's German from Germany.
Yeah. But I said this film, the plot is the Seven Samurai plot, where this small town needs to hire some help to protect them from bandits and criminals. And they send a guy out, which like they do in the Seven Samurai, and he hires one or two guys who get the rest of the team together, and they go there and they do their thing. But it works so well because it's just it's hard to explain it. Like, the story doesn't seem like it would be amazing, but I think the implementation is what makes it amazing. You know what I mean? Because there have been other Seven Samurai remakes since then, some good, some bad. Did we talk about last week, right? Jake was all remakes that are good and bad,
Yeah.
And it's this film, it just works, Excuse me. Yeah.
Right. We had a Brooklyn bad guy here playing our Mexican evil guy. We've got I just let Eli Wallach from Brooklyn, New York. It's like, you know these people, man. Why you protect them? I sweep them away.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
And you know what you forgot to mention in there is what's his name? Robert Vaughn. I think you did
mention
his name, but yeah, you mentioned his name.
The ones I didn't mention was the guy who played the knife guy. Oh, no, that's Coburn. Who played?
It's Coburn.
The guy who played the guy who played the Mexican. Another German guy who played the.
Trying to remember the name of the guy who did it. It's not Dieter, but it's that German and that unmistakably German. He's in I believe Judgment at Nuremberg with William Shatner, the same actor.
Yeah, but Robert Vaughn's one of my favorite actors. He's been so much stuff over the years, But
he's a good actor.
He's the one when they did the Magnificent Seven TV show, like in the 70s or whatever. He came back for it. Or was it 70s or 90s? Whatever they did that.
It was the 70s.
Yeah.
I liked how they kind of took every one of these Western iconoclast sort of guys. It's like Vaughn is like the Doc Holliday type. He's just nothing to live for, and just getting enough money to get his next drink. And then James Coburn, he's a fuck up. He likes to throw knives at people. Like, what are you gonna do? Steve McQueen, a little more pragmatic, a little more going on upstairs. Like maybe he wants to survive this whole thing. But and then we've got the great Yul Brynner, the King and I, and he's like quarterbacking this gang. And then I guess what we basically find out is it's way too early in this movie that they find out that there's really no money.
Now I know there was some sort of scam
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm going to say, because you mentioned McQueen, I was going to say, I don't remember all the deal, but there's some sort of scam that McQueen was contractually bound for like another movie or TV show, but they did a scam to get him out of that briefly so he could do this film, because whoever had that contract was blocking him from doing this film. Yeah. So I remember that much. McQueen always did stuff like that. He was always like, he's one of those actors who had a larger, like how this, like Christopher Lee or Brian Blessed, they have larger, like their real life is more fabulous than any of the movies they were in, type of thing. McQueen's another guy like that. You know what I mean? Like his real life exploits are more like crazy than the movies he's in. You know what I mean? So it's just fun.
Yeah, it looks like they nailed it. Horst Buchholz. Thank you, Melvin Deeply. It's Horst Buchholz. Let me just look at his IMDb bio and see if he's even American. He was born Henry Buchholz. Oh, maybe that's the name he tried. Yeah, he was born December 4th, 1933, Berlin, Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve McQueen was a race car driver. So.
Yep.
Hello, Jana Banana. Cool. The boners are in fact up. This is like the Viagra of manliness right here that we're absorbing. Look at this. It's got every element of Westerns, right? They're an ad hoc ragtag gang. Within the gang are groups and subgroups of friends. And like very early in the movie, we find out these villagers can't really make good too well on what's going on. and they don't have any reason to really stay and take on what like might be a kamikaze mission, but they just kind of, the most American of ways, so optimistic, this movie. They're like, all 7 of us, like at the same time, have just come to the conclusion that these people being bullied by this local warlord who makes everything around here a goddamn nightmare bothers us really to the core of our being, that it's not about money anymore. It bothers us to the core of our being that it's not about money anymore. We're going to lure this guy in here and we're going to kill him. We're even if he gets us. And they're not fatalistic about it, but they're like, we're not all going to make it out, but they're not totally fatalistic. They have about as much optimism as at the end of Private Ryan, where they're like, could go either way. But they defends their sense of right and wrong. And what we see is anti-heroes acting in a very heroic way, protecting these villagers. And they sell the villagers as like really helpless and really in need of someone to do the right thing. And here these amazing group of American misfits. They'll go down to Mexico and they'll give these people a chance to have some peace. They're gonna take on this gang of marauding criminals.
Yep. And the town even betrays them, and they still come back, and it's showing they have more honor than anything, more honor than sense, right, maybe.
After the initial clash with the what happens is, and this is period accurate, is like towards the end of the closing days of our western frontier, there's a lot of political instability in Mexico. So like they had warlords who like might come across into Texas and stuff like that. So the idea there'd be a town to protect, and they recycle this in the Three Amigos, obviously. But so the idea that there might be a town that had enough money to get protected and have its own private police force of pretty tough Civil War veteran Americans would be appealing and probably work for some people. And there probably were some places that were able to impose peace like this. But the idea that there were like sort of warlordism going on in Mexico, by and large, in the northern part, that seems to have been like a thing as they work through one non-respected government after another. Because after the War of 1848, when we fight them, they don't really have a government that can keep it together.
Yeah. No.
And as we know, they fall and have a revolution of around 1900.
Yeah. Okay, so one of my picks is The Big Country. Got Gregory Peck, Gene Simmons, Charlton Heston, Burl Ives, Chuck Connors. Yeah, it's 2 big cattle ranches that are fighting over water rights. So it's pretty good.
Water everywhere, not a drop to drink.
Y'all seen this one?
A long time ago. I remember. Chuck Connors, when I was younger, was one of my favorite actors. So I went looking for stuff he did all the time. I'd have to go rewatch this one to really talk about it, though, because I haven't seen it in probably 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Okay. Teak, what do you got next?
All right, let me take a look here. Next on my list, I guess if I should continue to go in order, it's not binding. No John Wayne. Is that supposed to be at the end, or is that just something that Matt wants to do?
Well, I'm just doing it because I have a feeling when I mention my John Wayne or Clint Eastwood films, you guys are going to have them on your list, some of them at least. So rather than duplicate or take stuff away from you guys, I'll just do the non-ones first,
Well, yeah, you know, it was cool. I crossed Magnificent Seven off my list and just piggybacked on your thoughts. So this should work out great. So Josie Wales. Josie Wales is one of the greatest Westerns of all time, one of the greatest movies ever made. Clint Eastwood comes out of the gate strong. I mean, I don't know if this is the very first movie he made. It's a Malpaso production. He's calling the shots on this one. And we now know that it was probably a good risk to back this movie because it was everything you could want in a Western. He's an anti-hero. And also like kind of really lines up with something we said earlier about like the technology and the post-Civil War aspect of all Westerns, where it's kind of like the Civil War has to be kind of in the backdrop, and a little bit of your like sometimes like your Civil War faction comes up in these Westerns, it's like you don't like someone because they were just on the other side.
Yeah.
That's in Shane. That's in a couple of other movies. So like Josie Wales, this starts out a war movie, but the war movie is mostly the opening montage. We see his family taken away from him by the Redlegs from Missouri, and he's from Kansas, and he loses everything. He's just peacefully sitting out the war, which a lot of Americans did, but the war comes to him. The faction that just does the worst to him is the Union. So he joins up with a real Southern division. That whole thing existed. They were historically correct, not totally accurate, but their surrender. A lot of guys held out after the war. They held out way too long. If you held out too long, they just declared you an outlaw, and they went right after you and showed no mercy. So these guys had held out too long after the war and kept fighting. They're considered just absolute brigands. They didn't get covered by the amnesty. He loses all his guys in a big massacre that he kind of saves only Sam Bottoms from. And he begins this, what begins with no plan. He won't surrender. He's not done. He's fighting a war in himself. And he sniffs out the trap for his comrades. He goes to try to help them, and he's unable to really do anything. He saves one wounded guy, and what begins as running away turns into, without really him having any plan, this journey of redemption where he ends up in Texas. And the book it's based on is called Gone to Texas. And it's the world that they create is beautifully real. Chief Dan George as his Indian companion, Josie Wales, the people he runs across, the people that start to make up this ad hoc family. There are certain aspects of Temple of Doom in this movie where, Indiana Jones just keeps picking up people in need and helping them out. And we sort of have a family sort of form here. And at the end, much like in Shane, all this trouble comes home to him because he didn't surrender. His name is known as the one outlier guy. They're coming after him. He's running for his life. Josie Wales posters are all over the West. And he has, first, an amazing encounter with the Indians and Chief Ten Bears. And then, a final fight followed by a final confrontation with another faction where he has to come to peace with everything he did. And, the immortal words, and without giving away the end of the movie, as all these people from these different factions who are so deeply vested into this post-Civil War world that they've had to bring the war forward a couple of years, they're just chasing him and fighting and losing people. And he's just chaos being unleashed everywhere they are. And just the greatest line in movies. Maybe we all died a little in that damn war. And also like the important trope of dry firing your pistol at your enemy till you start beating them down physically and take a melee weapon away from them and kill them like that because you hate them so much. And he hates his enemy in this movie. By the time he has to have the final confrontation with the most alpha and most driven of the bad guys, he is just like, he has had it with the guy. And like, he might be able to come to peace with a couple of the people that are chasing him, but the most alpha one of them, no, like that guy's got to go. They are polar opposites. And he's like, he's going to get that guy or he's going to die trying. And that's your final confrontation in that movie is one of the greatest in all Westerns. And Clint knows how to have a final confrontation.
And my favorite line from that movie is, "Are you going to pull them hog legs or whistle Dixie?"
So there's a fan theory out there. It's been around for decades, where if you take people have done this, they looked at every Clint Eastwood Western, they pulled the time and geographical information out of it and the time, like what month and year it would have occurred in the character's lifetime, like what year in Josie Wales' lifetime.
Right, because they're all filmed in December.
Yeah. So and and the speculation. I'll finish with the theory is in a second. That Clint Eastwood had to have been doing some of this on purpose, right? That you can line up almost all of his westerns and in a timeline and geography, and it works out that for almost all of them, he could have been playing the same character operating under different aliases in almost all of his westerns. In
Yeah,
other
there's a
words,
few you have to discard, but yes.
yeah, like they even I saw the last time I looked at a timeline for was like 10 or 15 years ago. But like one like they said, like he even has this like passive references in one film, like, oh, a year ago I was in Cheyenne, Nevada, or whatever. I'm thinking that out of my head, but like they little like and they said Clint Eastwood must have been in on this at some point because there's no way all like 20 or whatever of these films could work out that way so perfectly, even to
The
the
moment
point
we
that
know he's in on it is definitely in Unforgiven, where he uses all of that man without a name stuff as his backstory and just kind of repeats very similar stories.
well, not just that, but Pale Rider is almost a direct sequel to Hang 'Em High. So that like even to the same actors showing up in some cases. It's like so it's such it's and that's what I love about the
You
way
know
he
what?
plays
They
these
they had to
characters.
fix Hang 'em High, though. They had to fix Hang 'em High.
Yeah,
Hang 'em High. It takes place on Gilligan's Island. The primary antagonist is actually even worse. It's the skipper himself.
yeah.
And it's just they had to fix Hang 'em High.
But
And slower movie, Pale Rider is really good, but it's a slow movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
like I
It's
was
high, and I
saying,
think it's High Plains Drifter too. Is a lot of it.
yeah, there's other, but that's the point. Eastwood does such he plays this man with no name cowboy, but even if it has a name in a lot of the films, so well that like he's mastered the role. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's hard to even imagine another actor playing this type of character. He's done it so iconically,
I haven't seen anyone be able to pull off what he does in movies,
yeah,
I mean, there might be something to that. I will say this though, when you play an avenging angel, it's pretty easy to string all those avenging angels together and say that they were one guy. But you know what? In High Plains Drifter and in Pale Rider, he's coded to the events of that area and the bad guys that he arch enemies up against and goes out of his way to have problems with. And I guess one of the things that disappoints people about Pale Rider is he didn't end the movie with quote unquote just another gunfight. It's like a brawl in the street with axe handles, and it's pretty brutal. And like
Yeah.
I found myself cringing more and flinching more. And isn't Nice Guy Eddie Sean Penn's brother in it?
I know the dude who plays Jaws is in it. He plays the big guy.
Michael Moriarty from the first
Michael Moriarty
iteration
sure.
of original Law and Order is basically the star.
Yep. Well, I would say Clint Eastwood just takes it over, but that's a whole other.
yeah.
That movie's pulled so far forward past the edge of the time of people who could do that. I think the movie's supposed to be taking place in like 1910 or 1905, just before functional automobiles. They're hydro mining. They've got high pressure water.
Yeah.
They've got too many modern things. They've got mass production seems to be going on when you see stuff in the store.
He's an old minister. Used to be some sort of lawman or gunfighter. The mysterious background,
Yeah.
Well, when we see him take off his shirt, he's got 6 bullet holes and more or
Yeah.
less a circle through the center of his coming out. Their exit, assumably, we assume they're exit wounds, but they're wounds on his back. We don't see his chest. His back is turned to us, I believe. So he's pretty messed up. He should not be around. But we've seen him play the Avenging Angel a couple of times, and I guess the more famous one is High Plains Drifter. But hey, that was great. Like, let's paint the town red, call it hell.
Yeah.
And everyone gets their comeuppance to what they did to the person who forms that wraith.
Yeah.
And of course, we wouldn't have the great Charlie Sheen movie, The Wraith, without High Plains Drifter. It's the same movie.
Yeah, I actually like The Wraith a lot. Maybe
it's fun, and Sherilyn Fenn looks great.
Yeah.
Matt, what's your next pick?
So my last non-Clint Eastwood, non-John Wayne film to mention is really more of a tribute to my grandpa. I like the movie. It's not like it's around my top 10, but it's not like, it's High Noon. So
That's a great movie.
Gary Cooper. I mean, Gary Cooper is one of my favorite actors of all time. That's granted. But this is my grandfather's favorite movie, and so I will always remember the movie for that particular reason. Gary Cooper plays this type of character, that sort of quiet man of character type of thing. Plays that type of character exceptionally well. Granted, you could say he plays that same character in almost everything he does, but he happens to just catch that sort of vibe really well. You know what I mean? And basically, it's kind of, so he's the sheriff of a small town. He sent someone to jail a long time ago, and that person's coming back under threat of killing him with his old gang. And it's about the showdown with Kane, the villain's named Kane.
Will Kane.
Yeah. He plays Kane. And what the villain is?
Frank Miller.
Okay, there you go. So he plays, and Miller's going to come to town, and they want to have it out with him, and they want to kill him. And the movie, there's great tension built in this movie. No one wants to stand with Kane at all. They're all afraid, and that they're refusing to help or whatever. I think one guy says he'll help ultimately and runs away. Everyone's saying, Kane, just get out of town, man. Just get the hell out. Don't even waste time with it. No one's gonna help you, and you're gonna die, and it's gonna make it horrible. Some little kid offers to help him at one point, and he refused the little kid. One guy, the one guy offers to help him, but then quits because he's the only one helping him.
Yeah. Lloyd Bridges is the guy.
And the whole town just disappears for the final fight because they know they don't want to get killed in the crossfire.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
Grace Kelly.
That's the one thing we wanted to. What's the weird coincidence is there's 2 ticking clocks in this movie, 3 ticking clocks in this movie. Really, we have overlapping ticking clocks. The name of the movie was well chosen. High Noon at about 11:30 or whatever it might be. Is High Noon when he gets there, or is it because High Noon is just some critical time? But is that when the train arrives?
Train arrives at noon.
All right, so then he gets married at about 6:05 a.m. because the sun is out and he doesn't have time to do any of these other things unless it is. But so he gets married real early in the morning. He's going to leave town, and the thing is that Miller, we get some context on him. What happens is they find out that Miller's been sprung and it's legal. Whatever, something didn't go right with keeping him in jail. So he's coming back to town today, and they've just found this out because of technology and et cetera, et cetera. So when he finds this out, he has just gotten married, and his wife's a pacifist, and he's like, wow, I put off getting married so that I can, Gary Stewart. Like I put off getting married and until I could retire from my job, and I've cleaned up this town, and I feel like I did a good thing. And they're like, all right, well, congratulations. And it's like, we just got a telegram from the state prison. Frank Miller's on the train. It's going to arrive at noon. And he's like, shit. When they're like, run, get out of town. And he runs, and he's riding out of town. And it's the critical scene of the movie isn't even a scene with any gunplay. It's that he stops the wagon. And he's like, no. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, no, I can't run. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, I can't run. I can't just run away from this guy. I saw what he did. So he's going to turn this town back into a hellhole. Now, right now, with what we've seen built there, how can I turn away from these people? And how can I turn away from my responsibility? You know what? Screw Frank Miller. I don't care. I'm going back there, and I'm going to be a lawman for the rest of today because my contract ends at nightfall anyway, and I'm not going to leave until my job's done. So there's that aspect to it.
I mean,
and then that she's like, I'm going to split. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And not that, not just that they would burn the town down, but then they would track him down, and kill
maybe not
him.
burn the town down, but they would reduce it to what it had been before, because we get enough because this is very early in the movie. It's only about 8 or 9 minutes in where he turns around and says, "No, I won't run away." And she's like, "You go back to that town. You're gonna, I'm gonna get on the train and leave you." So he just got married an hour ago, and he's like, "Nah, well, I don't care. I got to do what I got to do, and I'm gonna do the right thing because that's what's right." And I didn't put Frank Miller away so that he could come back here and burn down half the town or run the town or do whatever it was he was doing before, beating on people's wives, disrespecting people, spitting in the street. We're not going to have another Frank Miller reign here. Not under our, not until at least we get some good graphic novels out of this guy. I'm going to rein him in. And he goes back there and, she's going to split. And the confluence of events, she leaves as he arrives. The Miller gang and Gary Cooper have it out. And over the course of the movie, what we find is he goes from one ally to another. And Harry Morgan might be in this one too. Isn't Harry Morgan the judge who tells him, forget about it, just run? Right? A lot of people he's like, you rode with me when we tracked down Miller the first time. And he's like, yeah, but wow. I mean, that was a long time. That was like 2-3 years ago. I mean, I'm not, I don't know if I could do that kind of stuff again. It's like, if we all stand together, a bully like Miller won't have any kind of effect on us. That's how we got rid of him. We can make him leave again. We just have to stand together one more time. And everyone's like, you know what? If I didn't have so much invested in what was going on in this town, I would do it. But if I'll get killed. And they're like, you only have this because we stood up for it and risked our lives before. And if you don't do it again, you're going to lose it. And everyone's like, no, I'm too scared. So, and they say it. And then one guy's like, no, Lloyd Bridges is like, I'll do it if I get this, this, and this. And he's like, it's not about your ego. You're going to come out there and help me fight them because it's the right thing to do or not. And he's like, no, I won't. And then we spend some time with his hot Mexican girlfriend, which is really appreciated. But every American president, by tradition, was shown that movie since it was released. I don't know if they still do it, but for several presidents in a row, the first night that you're president after you're sworn in, the next day after all those balls and inaugurational functions, the next day you watch High Noon, because that's an analogy for what it's like to be the president of the United States. You have to do the right thing that's right for all the people, not just yourself, and you won't have any friends. Oh, I thought it's a powerful statement in a movie. One of the most powerful movies, and I'll leave you with this piece of trivia. That unforgettable theme song, "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling." Tex Ritter is John Ritter's father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing I love about one of the main things I do like about this film a lot is the ending of the film after the violence is over. He basically expresses disgust at the town. Which
he scoffs at them as he leaves them a better place. He's not going to stay.
Throws the badge in the dirt,
Yeah, he does the Dirty Harry thing. But here's the thing: he's not a world weary cop. He's just like, I did my job for this town, and you people, you better find yourself another sheriff, and here's your damn badge. And I guess him and his wife probably just get on the next train or get back on their wagon and head to wherever they're going to go. But a great ending to that movie. And sort of a little bit of a modernistic twist with the throwing the badge in the dirt, although that is kind of a cool Western symbol. I'm not sure how many times we'd seen it done before that. That was powerful. Great movie. Great movie.
Yeah. Well, Gary
and the
Cooper,
gun.
Yes, an interesting. Go ahead, Matt.
I was say, remember, Gary Cooper plays these sort of paladin-like characters constantly. So him doing that, casting judgment on the town, when you're in an audience, knowing who Gary Cooper is, the type of characters he plays, that adds weight to what he does. You know what I mean? Maybe the modern audience might not know.
I don't feel he cast judgment on the town. I feel that he almost expected it. He almost expected to have to face them alone. And here's the thing: when everyone says they're not going to help him, what does he do? Same thing he's going to do anyway. It has absolutely no impact on the course of his actions. And that gunfight running down the street, he's smart. He outsmarts the other guys. He pulls a couple of tricks. He does a couple of things. And there's nothing like when we get a great action sequence that gives us some of the traits of our characters. And hello, Value of Nothing.
Yeah.
Welcome. And hi, Beard of Liberty. Good to see you. And Gianna Banana. thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, and also, his wife comes and helps too.
Yeah,
his wife does have a chance. I didn't want to blow too much of the movie, but no spoilers on a movie from 1953, right? Yeah. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, the wife realizes that one of the things she really likes about him is he's such a fucking man. He's such a man, and he's so tough, and that he'll do the right thing even though he's outnumbered, because he's got a kind of morality that, like, the world needs moral men who are willing to step forward in the name of justice, duly sworn law enforcement officers who considered himself a guardian. And I think that just changed the way she felt about, she still hated violence, but he's like, you know what? There's people so much worse than me that will be violent in an ongoing way and turn this town into a horror story, and everyone's life will be horrible. It won't be a place worth living in. And it's like truth, justice, and the American way.
And we were talking about this earlier, like how essentially there's one marshal for the entire region with all of these criminals, and he did, how I don't want to say lawless is the exact correct way to say it, but this era when the gunfires were active, the good ones and the bad ones, you had one U.S. marshal for the entire territory, essentially, that whole county or whatever.
Right, but he's that town's sheriff, though. Was their solution that the marshal would be there in a few weeks?
He's a marshal,
and he'd take it. Is he a marshal?
Well, I mean, he's identified as Marshal Kane. I mean, I don't know. I always meant he was a territorial marshal.
Say he was the city's marshal, because just like the idea that he was the federal marshal and like all that. I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt the movie either way. It's just not the way I had thought of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't look very federal of a badge. Either.
Yeah. An interesting caveat to this is John Wayne didn't like this movie. Because of the climate, the hearings on un-American activity, and the height of the Cold War. So he made.
You roboted a bit. You roboted as you were making your point. You came back on Rio Bravo.
Fight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? I could see how in 1950s America, the idea that the average American wouldn't just be like, well, hot damn, let's go out there and have our posse go delete this guy, phaser set to kill, but this movie is very different. And I don't know if it's a red listed director, but or a red listed writer, but this story is really, really good, really, really different. And the three ticking clocks, will she get on that train? Will he be on that train here? Will anybody, and will this last the entire day? Because at the end of that day, these people are starting to change his feelings about things, as was said, that maybe at the end of the day, he's felt like, I've lived out my obligation. He's like, I'm not going to run away. No, I'm sheriff till sundown. I think he says, or I'm marshal till sundown. And you know what? Dodge City has a marshal, and that guy's not federal. So yeah, I think they're just using the term. I don't think he's supposed to be, because if like a movie like True Grit shows what would be considered like a federal marshal, although I think he's lost his federal badge and he's just bounty hunting by the time the movie starts. He was former Marshal Cogburn. Yeah. They had a more the marshal was constantly moving from place to place. He secured and cleaned up that one town as a one-man police force. I just think he's coming off 5 years not sleeping, going around. In the last year, things been nice and quiet and just like he likes them. And he just doesn't want it to go away. He's just kind of about how Americans feel about their homes. It's a referendum. It's like, I want to be safe. I want to live out my dreams here, even if it is just to shoe horses or whatever we do in this town. And, very early vestiges of technology. We don't see any cars, but I think we see telegraph. The telegraph plays into the movie. So it's about 1870, 1880.
Yeah.
Someone has a repeating with Henry rifle. So we're past 1876.
Right.
But the fight does show us about the characters. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
it is a really good.
It's a very satisfying
I think
gunfight.
this movie was right up Gary Cooper's alley because of the characters he's played before.
I think Stewart could have done it too because he really was
Yeah.
that tough. I mean, when they were like, Mr. Stewart, you've done enough for your country, Colonel. You can go home. He's like, damn it, I'm more qualified now than I ever been before. Send me back out there.
Yeah, right.
Fill up my plane and shut your mouth. That's whenever I see him in any kind of tough guy role, I'm like, well, he'd know.
Yeah. Well, my next pick is the Searchers.
Great movie. Did you ever see the cutscene? Did you ever see the deleted scene from the beginning of that?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No,
okay, so Jeffrey Hunter is speaking to another guy, and they're like, we call them holodecks. You can go in there and live out anything you want. And he's like, I want to go to the ancient West. And he walks in, and that was cut from the beginning of the movie.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's a Star Trek joke. We got a Star Trek actor. It's Jeffrey Hunter. It's Captain Pike, everybody. But he's really young.
Yeah.
This is about a 20-year-old
got another
Pike.
John Ford movie.
This one's good.
Yeah.
Natalie Wood, right?
Right. That's a little kid, I think. Right?
She's the person they're searching for.
Right, that's right.
Am I correct?
The 15-year-old. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, she's been missing for a little while, right? The John Wayne character has been in no position to do much about this. He just came back and found out about this, and we start our movie, right? I don't think we see the people get taken. Like John Wayne shows up. And it's just a fact.
We do see like the beginning of it before they attack.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it cuts. So we don't get
to be honest.
We don't see the actual incident.
Okay. I have never seen this one straight through. I've caught this one on TV a million times, and of course it's a great movie, but I've never seen this one straight through. So I'm not totally together on the facts, but George Lucas says he based Star Wars on it, the first one.
Yeah. And the main character, Ethan, starts off with him coming back from the Civil War. So it's another one of those movies.
So Ethan's John Wayne, right?
Right.
Yeah. And this movie also, the reason they chose the Comanche, pretty much everyone hated them. All the other ancient Indian tribes hated them. They were not a well-liked tribe. So that's kind of why they were picked for this film as opposed to another Indian tribe.
Yeah.
We need to invent an Indian tribe called like the Orcs or something like that, or just like whatever, like the Cherokee or something like that. Something come up really mean, and so they could just be really super evil and just like be the foe again.
If you ask the other tribes, the Comanche were evil. If you ask the other tribes, so like
that's like asking 31 NFL teams what they think of the Dallas Cowboys.
No, I mean, the Comanche were known even after the things had settled down between the tribes to continue raiding and murdering people. And I've read a lot about this sort of thing with Indian histories over the years. And like, you know, a lot of, yes, every tribe, what the Comanche was back in the day, so to speak. And they were not well liked, let's put it bluntly. Yeah.
Well, they are the bad guys, or not Comanches, but like Comanches who had left the tribe. Like, why don't they refer to the gun and whiskey runners who are torturing and messing with the people who are going out west as Comancheros in Josie Wales?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Teague, what's your next pick?
Oh God, I just took a huge bite of Snickers.
That's okay.
As I think here, how about Tombstone? Westerns are supposed to be fun. This one's a lot of fun.
It is.
I think somebody I know made a supercut of Val Kilmer, and it's only like 18 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. So
Really?
I watched this movie like 2 years ago. It was good.
It kind of has a slow part. The Dana Delaney relationship with Kurt Russell. I was like, at the theater, I was like, I am so below who cares on this part of the story. And I kind of even laughed at some of the dialogue during that part. I'm like, come on, let's just start shooting people again. But now having seen it a few more times, I really do appreciate the movie. I have a more complete appreciation for it. But yeah, that movie, I would have to say Val Kilmer, like the star is Kurt Russell, and we've got a lot of other great actors in it. We've got Bill Paxton, right? We've got Sam Elliott. You know, we have a lot of great actors, but in that movie, I would say Val Kilmer really just puts in this performance that's so unforgettable as Doc Holliday. And Anna Pakula as his primary prostitute girlfriend. He is just the best. And, you know, he's another crazy person from back east. He had a little bit of a Civil War history, I think, too. But you know why Doc Holliday had to become a gunfighter and do all that stuff?
No,
He was an action. His doctoring was in being a dentist, which you could kind of just say you'd set out to do. So he was a dentist, but think about it. He had tuberculosis. No one wants a dentist coughing in your mouth. So he had to switch careers.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he hadn't been such a drunk, he would have been all right.
Yeah,
But great
the bad
performance in
guys
that
in it
movie.
too. The Powers Booth,
Terminator,
Stephen Lang,
Powers
and
Booth, and what do you call it? Don't
Michael
forget Michael Bine from
Charlton Heston was in this
Bine.
movie in some role. I remember that much.
Yeah, he had a small part in it.
Yeah.
And Tombstone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why I don't remember him?
Stallone's brother had a small part in this movie. Trying to remember other people.
Jason Priestley.
Yeah.
And Chris in the Morning from Northern Exposure.
I think Jason Priestley's dead now.
Luke Perry's dead.
Oh, okay. Well, Jason Priestley is just dead. Yeah.
Who knows? I think there's still a 90210 spinoff or sequel show around.
Yeah.
He might be back. Or maybe he could replace Luke Perry in the Riverdale show.
Yeah. Matt, what's your next one?
Okay, so we already talked about Pale Rider, so I'll take that off the list. You mentioned The Searcher, so we're in my John Wayne / Clint Eastwood section right now. I guess I'll pick. Do you want to go with the Duke or Clint? Sons of Katie Elder with John Wayne. I love this movie. Maybe it's because the actors have such great camaraderie. Between the way they just play off so well with each other. You know what I mean? So you got John Wayne as John Elder, Dean Martin is one of the brothers, Mike Anderson is another brother. I don't remember the other, but there's four of them basically, right?
Isn't Dennis Hopper in the mix somewhere?
He's in the movie. George Kennedy is in the movie. The standard Western dude, you'll recognize their faces as you see them. But this film is basically the sons of Katie Elder, right? The brothers. It's supposedly loosely based on a true story. That part I never investigated to see how accurate that was or not. So in the town that they're in is it's a town their family made famous, so it's like either named in honor of them or for them or something like that. And so the sons are all separated. I think one's a criminal and all that, and they come back together when the mom dies or is dying. I'm trying to remember the exact plot. It's been a while.
She's already gone.
She's already gone.
She's gone.
Yeah, and so they come together for a funeral or something like that. And
yes, I think Dean Martin is the criminal. I think.
Yeah.
He's a I don't think is he a criminal, or is he just he's a degenerate drunk who ends up thrown in jail because he's passed out in the street. That might be the extent of his criminality. And John Wayne is the town sheriff of that town. He's like, I don't know why you gotta drink all that fire water and act so crazy.
Yeah, and then
but he may also have been a criminal, but that was how he ends up in jail.
Yeah, well, I mean, they all wind up in jail when some gunfight breaks out and they accidentally kill the sheriff or something like that when someone jumps.
But not the deputy. Not the deputy.
They did not kill the deputy. You know.
And I
thought it was a frame up too, though.
Well, it was in a sense that they were jumped, so their defending themselves was lawful. But then it got framed up that they killed the sheriff and they started the fight or whatever, you know. There was a lot of politics, like Old West politics at play in the film. Maybe you don't catch when you're like 5 and you're watching it for the first time. Like the first time, it's just like the Duke and Dean Martin and all that, you know. But then, I mean, last time I watched this film, maybe 10 years or so ago, when I got it on Blu-ray, I guess is the last time I watched it, right? It was close to 10 years ago. Like when you watch 1883 or 1923, the TV shows we talked about, or talked about another movie with some of this politics going on too. There's a lot of this movie is very good at depicting the small town economics and politics going on that cause, like you can almost imagine that this setting was like the Yellowstone universe, like 100 years earlier type of thing. You know what I mean? Like all the politics we see in Yellowstone with the Duttons are involved in, and all the some seedy stuff, some straight stuff, and the Marlowe family. See, now I'm very intrigued to see if there's a book, this true story that's from some book or something or other, because all that was going on at the time. I think it's at the late 1880s it takes place, which makes sense because that's when the Old West was ending and becoming more settled, and a lot of that stuff we talked about the Barbary Coast with William Shatner, or if you ever seen the TV show Warrior, that just got canceled, unfortunately.
If your first day of work as a cowboy is like 1880, you're gonna work a 20-year career because I don't think cowboys typically last that long. It's pretty rough. So you'll make it, but anybody who starts too much after that, if your first day at a job as a cowboy was 1888, you're gonna be pretty young, in 1896 when things like the telephone come to town, and the law starts to be able to reach everywhere that the train can go.
Yeah, so this is when the transition happens, the 1880s, and the politics are at play in this movie. I'll have the heavy-handed of it, so to speak.
Yeah. Been a while since I've seen this one. I'll have to rewatch it.
But the main thing to me, the reason I love this film is, like I said, it's the actors who play the sons, the way they act together. They're, they have great chemistry together. You know what I mean? When you would think they really were brothers,
right? Is this the one where this in a wagon shop or something? This guy's beating up somebody, and John Wayne comes up behind him with an axe handle and pops him in the face with it.
I think they spend almost all this movie holed up in the sheriff's office.
There's some stuff on the ranch and stuff like that.
So I also have not seen this one in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. My next pick is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
All right.
One of my favorite probably my favorite spaghetti western. Yeah. So yeah, we got here. Got Clint Eastwood, Eli Welch again, Lee Van Cleef. I think everybody else in this movie is an Italian actor or something.
Yeah. Well, it's an Italian movie, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
A quick funny story. I was at the pizza place years and years and years ago, and as I was picking up my pizza, right, this was real Italian pies, right? And they were watching TV from Italy. So usually it was only ever soccer on the TV in the pizza place. And I looked up, and I guess it was some Italian comedy. But the three guys standing in a row dressed as like maybe 1800s like monks or priests, like they're wearing like friar type outfits, were
Right.
three primary bad guys from three different Dollar Trilogy movies. It's like
Oh, really?
Rubio the Mad was one of them, his sidekick was another, and someone else like maybe the Coffin Maker. And I'm like, those are the guys from the Clint Eastwood movies. I said it
Yeah,
like
that's
right out loud, and the pizza owner guy goes, "Oh yeah, those guys, they're big time comedians. This is like a comedy in Italy." I'm like,
wow,
really?
really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey, you know what? Think about it. Like part of those roles was like the madman laugh. So maybe it can be a
Yeah,
comic actor
yeah.
had the skill. And those villains, like they were very effective, but they were also just cartoonish enough to make them appealing.
Right.
I'm not saying they were silly, but like was it Rubio the Mad who had that obsession with the when a man meets a rifle, meets a man with a pistol, the man with the rifle walks away.
Yeah.
Right? Was that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
or is it does the good and bad the only contain like the chime watch?
No,
Is that the one?
is
Or
a
is this the one?
fistful
This
of
one's
dollars.
set against the Civil War. Right. So this one's the one that's set against the Civil War.
Right.
The good, the bad, and
it's
the
a
ugly involves there's some buried treasure out there in a grave in a certain cemetery, and they've got to get there. And the area is
Oh,
under
yeah, it's some
heavy.
stolen Confederate gold.
There's
Right.
gold, and it doesn't matter who made it. It's gold, right? Yeah, I guess in this case it's Confederates, but it's buried in a grave, and each person has 1/3 of the information. One person knows like the cemetery, one person knows something else, and one person knows the name on the tombstone. And so they have to go there and find this gold, and like it's the territory is being contested in the middle of our Civil War, and I guess the Spanish Army puts on or the Italian Army puts on the American Civil War, huh?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. And the scheme that Clint Eastwood and the other guy have, like throughout the beginning of the movie, where they're taking
It's
turns
great.
getting
ugly,
hung
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Are they taking turns, or is it because the thing is, I don't think that Eli Wallach's character has the skill to save Clint.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Their gambit is this that Eli Wallach's character is wanted, and he's also like he's an antisocial jerk. So wherever he goes, he acts like a complete idiot. He's of limited intellect, and the movie's unapologetic about that. The guy's dumb because he's stupid. He's stupid because he's dumb, and also like he has all the little problems that dumb, greedy, stupid people have. He likes to drink a lot and act out like a jerk. He finds himself on the outs with his brother, who becomes a priest, and all sorts of other great stuff. And like Eli Wallach is just completely unenviable. And all he has to do is walk into town and be himself. In about 2 hours, within 2 hours, he's locked up, and they figure out that he's wanted. And so they wait overnight. Clint camps out on the edge of town. If he oversleeps, the plan's screwed. So he sleeps out on the edge of town, and after like what he does is he turns in Eli Wallach for the bounty. And then when they're going to hang him, he fires and shoots the rope and breaks it, and thereby saving him. Swoops in and gets him out of there, and brings him to the next town where the bounty has gone up subsequently higher. And he's like, one day I'm just gonna be so rich, I'm not gonna. And it's like, hey, Blondie. And it's great. Like Eli Wallach is just a total jerk. Isn't there a scene where he puts a gun together from parts of other guns while he's acting like a madman?
Yeah, that's a good part.
That is his character's moment that tells you all about him.
Yeah, that's a good part. That's the most memorable part for me for this movie, and of course the final shootout is great too.
We have the quintessential Mexican standoff, and it may have in fact been was the first use of the word from this movie. The trope had existed before, but was the first use of the term Mexican standoff at this point. Was it coined for this one? Because it's real early. And we do it for like a good 2 or 3 minutes, and we've got some great guitar playing and tubular. Who thought? Did anyone here ever think the tubular bells would move you so much? Watching three guys stare each other down, and like the choral music. In these movies, George Lucas is paying attention, man. Like he's like, I notice that sometimes when the movie goes a bit too far, the music can sweep you off your feet and help you to be immersed more. And that's what this movie does. And every character might have their music. I'm pretty sure in this one, Blondie's got his music. I think what's his face? Eli Wallach's got his music, and then Lee Van Cleef comes into the mix late as is he still affiliated with the union? Right, he's got some power or something.
He goes undercover,
impersonating.
He's a union soldier, but he impersonates someone for he's not in the union army when he does the infiltration, so to speak. You know.
And the movie's brutal, and the movie's crazy, and these people act nuts.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef doesn't get enough credit for all the stuff he's done over the years.
Oh no!
These guys are so greedy for the gold that do you want to tell the story about what happens at the bridge? The Union and the Confederate armies are clashing, and if the bridge can be taken down, like they'll prevail. So,
yeah,
like basically our heroes take on the most dangerous task imaginable. They're like, well, we'll do it just to get the battle over, and we get the implication they've been deadlocked here for weeks doing this every day. Yeah, and no one can pull it off, and they're like, and these people are fighting for like their flag and what they believe in. They make a point of showing us the flags of the two sides, and here's these three mercenaries who don't care at all.
They just want the battle over so they can get past.
They're not even staked in on who will win because it's not clear who wins. It's just clear that once that piece of basically, like, they have to pull an Obi-Wan and crawl around the reactor to lower the force field of the Death Star kind of mission underneath this bridge.
Yeah.
And if they can blow the bridge up, then the battle is going to resolve. So they do so, and the battle resolves. And we don't even get the result in the movie. We don't know who wins.
No.
It happens, and no one's left to bother them anymore.
They take out the reason the battle's even taking place, so they just blow up the bridge, and there's no more reason to fight.
It goes back to being a war of movement, and everyone's trying to outmaneuver each other to the next objective, and our anti-heroes slip away because there's no admirable people in this movie whatsoever. Maybe the guy's brother, who's a priest, who tells him that he should never have left town and he was a terrible person. And it's great. We get validation that our bad guy's bad from like the church itself. Like his brother's like, you're a horrible man. Parents were always ashamed of you. Come to terms with what you are. You have a wife and kid. You left. You're terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Great movie. Teague, what's your next movie?
All right, let's see. Moving forward here, Unforgiven.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Unforgiven is one of the best movies ever made. Clint Eastwood got the script when he was a younger guy, and he ended up holding on to it until he could play the role he wanted to play. It was kind of pitched to him that he would play the kid role, and I think he also maybe did some rewriting on that to change it. And that's when he leans full into the man without a name thing, and the character's name is William Money. We get a great performance from every single member of our cast. We have an Oscars that is simply centered around Unforgiven. Richard Harris as English Bob, one of the greatest all-time confrontations in any Western movie. If you had 10 greatest confrontations in Westerns, 2 of them are in this movie. One of them is English Bob comes to town and tries to break the rules in Big Whiskey, where this movie happens. There's been a terrible crime. Somebody's cut up one of the local prostitutes, and she has a contract for whoring, as the guy says. Now everybody's upset. It looks like anything could cut loose in this town. Things are a little too wild in this town, And so the prostitutes start telling everybody that they'll give, what is it, $10,000 to whoever comes and avenges the prostitute whose face got cut up. And is that John Cusack's sister who plays that role? Is that Joan Cusack who plays the woman whose face gets cut up?
Let me look. I don't
It
think
looks a
so.
bit like her. It might not be her. It
does look
looks
like her.
She does resemble her. The point is that William Money was a gunfighter. He was a bad guy. He met a woman. He changed. He fell in love. He stopped drinking. He had children. He looked after his kids. And then his wife passes away before the beginning of the movie. In text on screen, we're told this. And then basically Morgan Freeman is his friend. And he's like, got some easy money for you. $10,000 if we go and just kill these cowboys who did this terrible thing over here in Big Whiskey. And whatever, Big Whiskey, I guess it's 2 weeks away. They say something like that. They have to travel there. They find out that their primary agent in this is blind as a bat and is not going to be much good in a gunfight at all. Then like they're coming to terms with the fact that like Clint is like 65, 70 in this movie because the movie's now 30 years old and Clint's like 92 or something. So he's like well over 60. He's looking salty and grizzled. You can see him here. He still looks real dangerous though. It's like basically Keith Richards on the 1982 tour. But he's got a lot of lines in this movie, which is unusual for Clint Eastwood. And I guess he was waiting to be the right age to play the role and to develop the skills. But this movie, basically, we get to this town. By the time we get there, he is sick as a dog from being rained on and out in the elements. They're just not used to it anymore. They're just not the guys they used to be, him and Morgan Freeman. And he wanders into town and he is sick as a dog. And the same thing that happens to Richard Harris happens to him. The sheriff of Big Whiskey is Gene Hackman. And but for the iconic one is English Bob. He walks into town and he's like, and this is one of the few movies we get nailed down in time because we know what year it is. They say it at some other point. And we know it's the 4th of July. So what Doomcock always says is, I don't know where in America there could be snow on the ground on the 4th of July. That must be the coldest part of North America. And I watched the movie again. And Doomcock, if you're listening, there is a lot of snow in frame, but it's in the mountains behind him. The street is muddy and crappy. There's no snow visible on the ground. It's not a nice day, and people's breath are foggy because. Go ahead.
We have a celebrity finger in the chat.
Oh, hello, Alec Baldwin's finger.
Hello there.
You know what? Heather Heyer's attorney has a few problems with you, sir. Yeah. And hello, Koba Ex Machina. Thank you so much for joining us.
And this is the actress here.
Yeah, there she is. She does look a little like Joan Cusack.
She's
this is what they did.
The actress is Anna Thompson, I think.
So what happens is at the beginning of this movie, some of these cowboys who are wild and young and impulsive and stupid, they get wasted drunk. They drink their entire month's pay, and they want to have sex, and they want to do what young guys do. So they hire this prostitute. She laughs at him for having a small dick. I'm sorry, small manhood. And basically he goes nuts and he cuts her up really bad. And there's not going to be any justice for it. And that's the thing about this movie is that we have a town that seems reasonable and it's on the cusp of becoming the town from what was the Gary Cooper movie? It's on the cusp of becoming
High Noon.
High Noon. It's on the cusp of becoming the town from High Noon. If it could just straighten itself out a little more. They've done a couple of the right things. They've hired a very, very tough sheriff who's going to keep people in line in the form of Gene Hackman. It's just that Gene Hackman, like we find out through the movie, he has questionable reading skills. He has questionable idea of how to be a sheriff. He probably has never read any laws in his life, and he just kind of deals justice in this town off the back of his hand. So he goes into this place where this terrible crimes happen. This woman's had her face cut up, right? And he's like, all right, what's all the yelling and screaming about? And they're like, they explain the situation to him. And Greeley, the owner of the bar, is just like, I got a contract for her for whoring. And he's like, all right. And he's like, well, I paid for her and she laughed at me. He's like, oh, okay. And she's like, my face got cut to pieces. And he's like, All right, here's what we're gonna do. You got to give Greeley 5 horses, and that's like the end of it for Gene Hackman. And they're like, all right, that works for us. And it's just like, wow, it's like this is like prison time. This is crazy. This is not justice. This is insane. And he's like, now just get out of town and don't come back to Big Whiskey again. And that's like good enough for Gene Hackman. And that's what like starts the rest of the prostitutes lying because they don't have the $10,000. But once word gets out, Big Whiskey starts getting red hot. Within a few weeks of this going out there, people all over the West, and again, we're dealing with the element of the West has changed. It's probably about 1885, right? Because we figure he's probably a Civil War veteran who probably was in his prime around 1876. This might be 1876, right? Because that seems to be a very important 4th of July. But the 2 great confrontations in the movie, the one with Gene Hackman and Richard Harris. And a lot of people say, if you pay attention, English Bob is like, I understand your president has been shot, which tells us it was Garfield, and we know what year it was, right? So whatever year Garfield was shot, and he's like, this is what 2 in how many years? So we know it's not Lincoln. And he's just razzing the Americans, and he's making them sick. And he's like, if you ever had royalty, believe me, you would never think to harm them. And then he goes out on the side of the train and starts shooting quail with like the other like white guys, and the Indians just looking at them like they're dirtbags because they're wasting the game for no, like they're just killing these animals for sport. They're leaving the carcasses. They're not going to eat them. And it's just the Indians can't. They'll look wordlessly between these 2 Indians when they look at them and back at each other. They hate all of them, but they really hate English Bob. And when English Bob gets off the train in Big Whiskey, he's looking for that $10,000, and he thinks that he can break the rules. And Gene Hackman just knows him a little too well. And he hands over his guns, and then to the deputies, one of whom looks mysteriously like he could be Harrison Ford's brother. And Saul Rubinek is with Richard Harris as his biographer. And when they come into town, they have this confrontation, and he hands over his 6-shooters. He's got 2 guns, and as he walks away, we hear Gene Hackman's voice like, I'll take that peacemaker too, Bob. And he closes his eyes really slowly because he recognizes the voice. And before he turns around, he goes, is that you, little Bill? And he turns around and is like, I heard you died falling off your horse. Drunk, of course. And they have this great back and forth. And Gene Hackman seems like he's going to be pretty reasonable about it. It's like, well, Bob, in my town, we just have this rule about guns. Let me ask you a question. You've been talking about the Queen again? And at the sound of the word, at the point that he says the word Queen, he cold cocks him with his gun in his hand and just like starts to pistol whip him for like 5 minutes. And like in front of the whole town, up and down the street. And then like his biographer loses control of his bladder right there in the street. And they throw little Bill in jail. He's a beat up. They throw English Bob in jail. He's a beat up mess. And at the as they drive little Bill out of English Bob out of town, a lot of people say he uses his British Cockney accent. People forget he's not British. Yeah, English right. Bob is English. Well, no, Richard Harris isn't British. Richard Harris is Irish. And in fact, in one of the most stunning moments in Academy Award history, they're like, this is the 2nd Academy Award for great British actor, Richard Harris. And he's like, I'll have you know something. I'm an Irish actor when I crash my car drunk. I'm an Irish actor when I punch a police officer because I'm drunk. And I'm an Irish actor when I receive an Academy Award. To hell with all of you. And like stormed off because he's not British. He just does a great British accent to the point that no one could tell. And when he was carted out of town, he starts yelling in his regular accent, and people say, oh, he's using his Cockney accent. And that's his Irish accent, ladies and gentlemen, wherever he's from in Ireland. Like maybe I would assume possibly the North. He might be a British citizen from the island of Ireland, but he's Irish and he considers himself an Irish.
No, he was born in Ireland, not Northern Ireland. But
okay,
he went to school at like the big London School of Film, so it might be why people think he's British.
He went to the London School of Film and he can do British accent perfectly, and he never ever acts with his Irish accent because people want that Richard Harris, and Richard Harris brings you Richard Harris. But I thought Richard Harris was just great in this movie. And as he's riding out of town, he's like, dirty, filthy one-horse town, rotten whores, got no law, got no honor. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people say, oh, he's using his Cockney accent. That's his Irish accent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he's using his Irish. But who knows? He's a great enough actor. He may have decided I'll use the Cockney on the way out of town. But he's dropped the affect where he's gone from being like the English style accent associated with Mick Jagger to the English style accent associated more with Keith or an Irish accent, to make it simple analogy for us.
Yep. Another great movie. One of the best modern or more modern age Western, in my opinion.
It hits every beat because what happened as the movie, the climactic act of the movie is one of our heroes is taken away, and Clint finds out that his friend has been killed, and as soon as he finds that out, all of his resolve changes. He grabs that bottle not because he's lost his sobriety, but because he's getting good and tanked up to go kill. And he doesn't need to drink a whole lot because we see what he starts out with, and we see the bottle he tosses in the street. He didn't need to drink much. He just needed to get into that evil, deep part of his soul that he is so, and he just channels back the person he used to be. And the movie's final confrontation in the bar with that, the iconic line that was in the commercial in the trailer: "You cowardly son of a bitch! You just killed an unarmed man." Well, he should have armed himself. He's gonna go decorating this sorry ass shit house with the bodies of my friends. Sorry about that. I had to quote the movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to curse less. I have a real bad impediment, people. I apologize for the language. Admiral's from New York City.
He has polymatitis.
I also like the part after the shootout. He's like, "Any of you out there gonna shoot me in the back, I'll come kill you and your family and everybody who knew you, burn your house down."
Oh my God. Yeah. The Saul Rubinik's journalist character seen a lot of stuff in 2 days. So the first time he sees violence, he pees himself. But then the second time, I guess he had just come back from the bathroom or he was ready for it. After Clint Eastwood blows away, and it's an incredible gunfight where somebody goes and tries to shoot Clint, and the gun misfires, and he takes the gun and clubs him down, and then he pulls out his weapon and he starts just shooting people left and right, and then there's some a crossfire where maybe they wing each other. It's just absolute chaos in the shootout at Greeley's. But the first thing he does, he goes in there and blows away Greeley. And I think, he walks up on Little Bill. He's like, because Little Bill knows who he is, because he's like, after he beat up on Morgan Freeman's character, he gave up their identity. He's like, "You be William Money, and you killed women and kids, and you blew up that mine back in '49." And it's giving you an idea of the time frame here. And he's like, "Yeah, I killed women and kids and most everything else that walked or crawled under the sun in my time. And now I'm gonna kill you, Little Bill." And that's when he pulls the trigger and his shotgun misfires because he's been out in the rain for so long.
Yeah.
And it turns into this crazy melee where he clubs one guy down with a shotgun and he just starts firing with his pistols. And I think he grabs another guy's gun. It's just absolute chaos. And at the end of it, Saul Rubinik's like, "You killed this guy first, and then you shot that guy. And how did you know what order to go in?" And Clint looks at him and goes, how did you know who to shoot first? And he goes, "All I know is who's going to die next." And he just runs out of the bar because he knows. And then, like Jacob said, Clint, he leaves the bar, but he stands there at the door, totally exposed to the gun. Doesn't care. And he's like, "I'm going to come out now. You all hear? Nobody better take a shot at me. If anybody does, I won't only kill you, I'll kill your wife and your kids. And I'll burn your damn house down." And then he walks out and he very slowly and meticulously gets on his horse. And while he's doing this, we see a guy raise his rifle and someone else pull the rifle out of the guy's head. It's like, no, just want him gone. This guy is absolutely a demon. No, he killed most of our problems are solved. We're going to get a better sheriff tomorrow. Call the guy from freaking Tombstone. He was all right. But miscarriage of justice and a great movie, and just the dangers that you don't have to rip a story from the headlines to have it speak to us today. unchecked, unfettered injustice enforced brutally will end up with people not having a stable life or a stable town. You need professional police who want to be guardians. And in this instance, the police didn't want to be guardians. The police just thought keeping the peace over all else. And it was keep the peace minute by minute. They're like, but you're just going to make things worse next week. He's like, next week ain't here, is it? Was the kind of outlook that Gene Hackman's character had. And that's why all these things just pile up. And then but we find out they don't have the money. And so he's got nothing out of this.
Yeah.
He gets nothing out. He leaves worse off than when he came. His best friend is gone. He's got to go tell. I guess you think he skips telling that guy's wife. He's like, yeah, you know what? Just what I think Nate ran off. I'm not in the mood to get yelled at again. Sure, because she hates him when she first meets him anyway. Even though it's her husband's idea to have this terrible mission, and he's all psyched up on it. But Unforgiven. About a town that just didn't know justice. There was no justice in Big Whiskey, and that's the catalyst behind this movie. And then alcohol as truth serum or bringing out your true self, it wasn't a hidden trait. He had to stop drinking because his trait was he liked to drink and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he had to change. And then he changes the transformation, and even in his body language when he walks into that bar and then walks into that town, he is death. He has become death. Did anybody believe that he was going to not survive that confrontation when he walks into that bar? It's like he's going to get all these guys. No. He might die later. He might take enough lead to die later, but he's not going to die in this. He's going to get these guys. He walks in there and just, who's the owner of this place? Blam! I mean, did I capture your? I'm sorry. Did I break your attention?
Break your concentration.
Did I break your concentration? Yeah. We were all pretty focused for the last 20 minutes of that movie, and then the more text on screen. He just goes. He pulls up stakes and just goes to San Francisco to become a dry goods merchant and never talks about it again.
Yeah. All right, we're coming up on our last two movies. Matt, what is
quick
your
question, guys? Just quick question. Do you think it's a relapse, or do you think he purposely brings in, quote, demon alcohol so that he can become the angel of death? It's true duality of man, isn't it? It's purposeful. It's not a relapse. And he doesn't have a drink the next day, does he? Go ahead.
I think the alcohol isn't so much to make him able to kill, it's to make him tolerate killing.
Ooh, I think he's going through the ritual of the things that he used to do before he was really good at killing.
I view alcohol as self-medication.
Back memories of that time.
He burnt himself up. He burnt his soul, so to speak, as becoming that ruthless killer. He self-medicated with alcohol. Then when he got older and stopped burning himself with the killing and the murders, I should say, not just
he met what was it, Felicia Feathers, his wife, who and he says, ever since I stopped my drinking in bad ways and started going to church or whatever it is he says, I haven't been a bad person. I haven't killed anybody. But I honestly feel that it wasn't a relapse and he doesn't drink the next day. I think he grabs that bottle to take in the alcohol just to it's almost ritualistic. And it's the symbolism of the demon alcohol. He brings the demon within himself. And then he becomes an avenging angel.
I just think it's more he's medicating himself so he can survive being the demon, not blow his own head off,
Oh, I think he's got the idea open that he might self-delete later, but I think honestly, I don't know. I just like the way he grabs that bottle. I don't even think he looks at it.
I think he knows he has to live for his kids, though. You know what I mean? He can't just die and leave his kids orphaned. So there's a part of him.
He does. He absolutely wants to live for his kids. He wants to. But you've broken a code in his life that precedes him having children or meeting that woman. You killed someone he rode with, someone who'd saved his life.
I'm talking about why he's drinking, not if he didn't care.
He didn't have any lower his chance of surviving. Being drunk and doing a gunfight. Get wasted and play Grand Theft Auto later. See how it goes. And like I said, he doesn't drink very much. We see they take pains to show us how much he drinks. Sorry, I didn't mean to rabbit hole into that one. I feel it was a purposeful I think he wanted to merge with Demon Alcohol and become an avenging angel, because that's to me the best way to sum up the movie. Honestly, a man drinks alcohol and becomes an avenging angel in a misbegotten case for justice in a town with no justice.
Yeah, I think this was a good movie to finish off the Man with No Name movies.
I have a Man with no name movies, but it's not a Clint, so we're good, right?
Well, I unfortunately have another Man with No Name film as my next one. So
okay,
he did hold off,
yeah,
so I guess he gets to grandfather his in. I would suppose, right?
Yeah, and after these two movies, we'll just give some. You can give your honorable mentions afterward. Okay, Matt, what is your
so the one I'm
5?
going with, my last two films were both Man with No Name films, but the one I'm going with, of course, is A Fistful of Dollars, which is basically it is an unauthorized remake of Yojimbo, the Kurosawa film. There was actually a lawsuit about that they sued us back in the day over it. And the premise of the movie is Clint plays a man with no name. He goes to this town that these two, like in Yojimbo, there's two criminal gangs, but in A Fistful of Dollars is two families, rival families that are causing his town to go to hell. And he plays them off against one another. Now he takes a different approach to Mifune in Yojimbo. So Clint takes a much more serious approach to the character, right? Whereas Mifune is has a sort of sense of humor about it. Like he's knows he's outsmarting them, and you see him as the actor kind of like he's clearly a good guy doing a good thing, pretending to be a bad guy. Whereas here, this is a bad guy taking out worse guys the way Clint is playing him, and he basically plays the two factions off against one another, lets them each think he's working for the other side, and gets them to annihilate each other. That's the premise of the film. Same thing, premise of Yojimbo.
The Baxter's on one side, the Rojos on the other, and right in the middle.
Yeah. He gets some allies in the town, and the story isn't complicated. It's just the way Clint Eastwood plays the character in a timeless story, and I've always liked this role, maybe because it's Yojimbo and there's other versions of it since then. I've always liked this story of the not so good guy who plays the bad guys off against one another really well and gets them to self-delete each other, so to speak.
Welcome to Euphemism Tube. We have to say it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think actually in this case, saying it that way makes it more poignant. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just avoiding it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think self-delete, because that's what it is to him. He doesn't think of them as people. He thinks of them as something you just need to erase to solve a problem. You know what I'm saying?
He sort of has like the Tex Avery cartoon where someone's hungry and they see everyone walking down the street as a big steak. He sees everyone walking down the street as a big wad of bills that if he just has to shoot it, it'll be his.
Yeah.
And I like the opening. Go ahead.
I like the opening part where he rides in on a donkey.
Oh my God!
It was a mule. It was a mule, and the guys, shoot at it, and it bucks him off. He's like, he goes up to him. You need to apologize to my donkey.
I was gonna say, if anybody has any ambiguity about this one, it's like I understand that you fellas just fooling around, but my mule here, he just don't understand. You see, gets taking it personally, and they're like, "What, huh?" And they're like, "Well, like it's a really cool scene because the three cowboys that he's talking to, like two of them are mocking him, but like you see one guy sort of like realizing that this is a little bit more serious than the other two guys get, and he's like slowly sort of like backing away and like putting his hand closer to his gun. He's like, maybe we shouldn't have fucked with this guy. I'm sorry. Oh God. Maybe we shouldn't have messed with this guy, but great sequence.
And then if
you were wondering what
throws his poncho aside, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's means business."
they see those two cross cult navies. And by the way, when they scare the mule, don't we? Is that when we get the great acrobatics where he grabs the sign and does the head over heels flip?
Yeah, right.
On the coffin maker sign,
and
on the coffin maker shop sign, whoop, does the loop to loop.
And this has the thing where, again, showing he's outsmarting the opponent. You don't see this a lot in westerns, where he puts the steel plate under his poncho, you know, and then just go ahead, shoot me, you know. You don't see that a lot. You would think a lot of guys in westerns, like in real life, would say, "Wait a minute, let me get me some steel plate and put it inside my vest," and they might have lived. You know?
Yeah.
But even in the movies, I can't think of many other films where you see.
It's like he was aware of his other movie.
Yeah,
it was like he was aware of his own other movie. He's like, they probably saw that movie where I got shot over and over and didn't die because I was a ghost. So I'll put a metal plate under my poncho and they'll never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the one with the chime, with the clock chime. Then because at the end of the metal plate scene, throughout this movie we have the bad guy pulling out this watch fob. It's like a pocket watch, and it's not very big. We find out later it was once a woman's who Lee Van Cleef loved, who was Rubio the Mad's sister. Do I have the name right? Rubio the Mad's sister, who he had some kind of crazy Scarface and Gina sort of thing going on with in his mind. And so like he shot up both of them. I think killed his own sister, but really messed up Lee Van Cleef. And I guess that this weird watch charm that he has, it plays this haunting song. He's like, when the music stops, that's how when we draw and fight. And it's like, I don't know how you could ever know when the music would stop, but that was a really cool thing to have in the duels.
That's actually for a few dollars more. The watch, but it's the same bad guy, and
these movies are very close together.
They're so good.
So is Van Cleef in this one at all? Then
no. Van Cleef isn't in this one at all. This is the first one. For a few dollars more was a sequel to this. I think the final one was could have been Youngly. Although before we go, we do need to mention
this is the town that hates each other. Duh. Sorry.
Yeah. The unheralded hero of these three movies, Ennio Morricone, who did the soundtrack, the score to all the films. He's a legendary one of the, I guess what you would say from this period of the, I guess you would say what, the late 1960s through like 2020 or so. You have him, you have John Williams, Basil Greek name, Basil.
I think his last movie is Hateful Eight.
There's a whole bunch of great 4 or 5 great composers who put these scores together for all these movies in that time period that are just amazing. And Morricone is the one who did, the
great series of movies. My final one.
Kind of hard to tell one from the other. That's all I was going to say. That got confusing there because we do have the final showdown with the same bunch of bad guys a couple of times. This is the one. Is the Fistful of Dollars the one where they engineer an international incident so they can get the money, right?
Yeah,
it's payroll for it's American payroll. They jump and delete a bunch of Mexican soldiers, and then they take that's
a few dollars more. That's for a few dollars more, where they robbed the Mexican bank.
We're gonna say this: watch all 3 of these movies, and just don't bother taking notes. They're all 3.
This is the remake of Yojimbo. If you know what Yojimbo is, this is the remake of the unauthorized remake of Yojimbo.
Here's the one thing I do know for sure. He actually does have a name in every one of these movies. And I got 2 or 3 of them right, so I feel all right.
Yeah. Yeah, my final one is... Go ahead.
It's very hard to find consistent cuts of any of these movies. There's like a whole bunch of different releases. You got to really look and see. The movies are visibly different to look at. The different versions of the Dollar trilogy. Some of them are like a lower quality film stock, but have like better soundtracks. Some of them have flaws in the soundtrack, and there's scenes in some that aren't in others. So it's really, really confusing, especially if you try to watch, like, say, all 3 cuts of each one or however many there may be. You're going to be like really lost because these movies were longer when they were released in Europe and also have stuff that was cut out of them.
Yeah. So my final pick is Open Range.
I was hoping someone would slip that one in there. It's a good one.
Yeah. So it's got Kevin Costner and
The most
Robert
modern
Duvall.
one? Anyone said?
Yeah. When did it come out? Yeah, 2003.
I saw this with my dad, so it's a great movie.
Yeah. It's slow build up, but it's I think it makes the movie. I mean, that it's a slow build up to the gunfight, but it works.
Yeah, I don't remember watching this, but I think this was in the time period when I hated Kevin Costner and wanted him to be jettisoned off the earth.
This was a movie that, this was the movie I saw where I was like, wow, I'm over hating Kevin Costner. Like, it went from the after Dances with Wolves until this movie. I enjoyed Dances with Wolves, and then there's a period until this movie where I wasn't enjoying his work at all. And in this movie, I'm like, you know what, man? Like, I really did enjoy it. And like, there's not a lot of violence in this movie. It's a slow build to when the violence happens. The movie really is, it's like the open range is going away. That's the operative thing going on here. Again, cowboys up against change. His time is in the past. And, I wouldn't mind being married to Annette Bening the way she looked in that movie. She was pretty cute. But basically, we just have a, what do they do? Do they encroach on someone else's land, or is it just 2 bands of cattlemen who can't get along and there's a limited amount of grass now? Sort of like 1923.
It's free rangers. It's free rangers, meaning that they just graze off other people's land to get the cows to sell them. Is what I get.
Right. So they're poaching resources.
Right.
Yeah.
And it comes into odds with a rancher.
Who are our free rangers? Is that Kevin Costner's faction, the smallest faction?
Yeah, Kevin Costner, Robert Duvall, and Diego Luna. And Abraham.
I wonder if that guy will ever go anywhere. Yeah. I wonder if Diego Luna will ever do anything again. I wonder if we'll ever hear from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie was pretty good. There's a violent conflict at the end. This movie's kind of obsessed on what guns do to people. Because they spend a good amount of time building up to the fact that he's going to go and he's going to do what he has to do, because basically what happens is the conflict ends with them getting jumped in the middle of the night. And I guess it's another axe handle beatdown, and one guy doesn't wake up and devolves either dead or too hurt to help. And the only guy left is Costner, and he's sort of a mess. And he just goes out there and kind of pulls a Unforgiven. There's certain similarities to Unforgiven.
Yeah. And the opening to that gunfight too is like, he goes one of their friends was killed, which leads to this fight. And he like goes up to this guy that killed their friend. He's like, "You the one that killed our friend?" And he just gets him right there. He's the first one to get shot. It's just
the friend who got killed was the slow, not so smart, heavy guy from Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yeah.
From Parker Lewis Can't Lose. So like, I was trying to get into this movie, but every once in a while, and this guy was a good actor and stuff. Like, now it's been long enough, it wouldn't affect it. But at that time, he was still like recently off TV. I'm like, every time he walked up to the camera, like, Parker Lewis is fucking bully. Parker Lewis is bully.
Yeah.
But that's a good movie, yeah. And a weird ending. I don't know if you want to spoil it or not, but very different ending.
Yeah, I gotta go watch this movie because I was looking over like I hated like I liked Untouchables. I like Kevin. I like Silverado with Kevin Costner years and years ago. I liked Untouchables, No Way Out, Bull Durham, right? Then I hated Field of Dreams. I hated Dances with Wolves. I hated Robin Hood. I hated JFK. I hated The Bodyguard. I hated Wyatt Earp. I hated Waterworld with a passion. Right. I wanted to like The Postman, but I hated just because I have Kevin Costner in it.
Waterworld.
And I hated 3,000 Miles to Graceland with a passion. And so by that time I was like on a Kevin Costner hate quest, and anything he was in after like 2000, I was like fuck, I was like frack that.
Were you telling people his best? Were you telling people his best movie was The Big Sleep because he just plays a corpse to the whole thing?
I think the first Kevin Costner movie I liked to some extent, since like Bull Durham, right? So that's like a 20-year gap or whatever, was Man of Steel. And even that wasn't a great movie. Which
oh my God, I hated him in that movie as Jonathan Kent. Should I have let all those feelings?
No, what I mean is, I'm not saying. I'm saying I liked the movie. I'm saying I liked the movie. You know what I mean?
I hate that movie.
It wasn't a Superman movie, but I liked it. You know what I mean?
Okay. In that context, having said that, I can let that go. Yeah, I hated the way they handled that, and I thought that he was a horrible father in that movie.
I agree. I'm. That's why I said it was a Superman movie. But there's such a run of hating on him. Like even in case with a movie like The Postman, I wanted to like The Postman a lot. I thought the premise was pretty cool. So, how that he was a con man and scamming people. We got into it for real, but I was like, this is Kevin Costner. I hate him. I want him to burn and be jettisoned into the sun. I couldn't.
I knew that movie was in trouble when I saw the first commercial, and the theme song of the movie was from a recently released other movie. It's like, oh my God, it's the theme song from Gettysburg. This movie must really be on fire.
Yeah. But he had a previous good Western, Silverado,
Yeah.
So
his best Western's probably Dances with Wolves, and maybe needs to be a little shorter. I don't know if that movie as theatrical release length was takeable. I like it.
I didn't care for that one either.
Basically, like from Bull Durham through like modern times, like Man of Steel, essentially. Every movie I see him in that I've seen, or seen part of, I've hated.
They say he's good in Yellowstone. I'll be able to handle that. I can handle watching him.
Well, I'm back to hating him again because he destroyed Yellowstone.
I think he's coming back, and I think his character is like kind of a bad guy. I haven't watched Yellowstone. I've watched 1923.
So
I'm looking forward to watching 1883.
What Yellowstone, the final part of the final season is coming back, and the reason they're canceling Yellowstone is because Kevin Costner had a mental fit basically, and wants to do his own Western now. He had to deal with Taylor Sheridan to do Yellowstone, and they don't want to pay Costner anymore to be an executive producer by doing more Yellowstone seasons. So they're canceling it and basically starting a new show with a lot of these same characters, so they can get Costner off the executive producer credit.
You know what? The one thing they might want to do is stop calling the shows Yellowstone because it's not copyrightable. But hey, let's throw out some. You said honorable mentions. I got a good one for you. You know what? It's a Western, and I think the comic Westerns are extremely important. Man Without a Name movie that I really love. You ever see My Name Is Nobody?
No.
It's the final Man Without a Name movie. It doesn't have Clint Eastwood. It stars an Italian actor named Giuseppe something, but his American name is Terrence Hill. Henry Fonda is in it, again, in a Western setting. The movie seems to, again, be filmed in Italy. It's not the most coherent idea. What happened was Sergio Leone wrote like an outline and threw it to his second unit people and said, go ahead, make one more Man Without a Name movie. Just, don't mess it up. And it was just about how this younger gunfighter held this older gunfighter in high regard. And we had gotten to the ages of the early automobile. Like they were way past their time where they should have been acting like this. And the idea is that he can't just fade away from the West or just retire because people are coming after him anyway. And Hank Fonda's like looking like every minute of 70 in this one. But the movie's funny. Who would have thought? Henry Fonda is not getting it a lot of the time, but the performances are great. There's some great sight gags. There's some great trick shooting stuff. There's some great like card game stuff. All the Western movie trope stuff that you want. The unbeatable enemies and all that stuff. My Name Is Nobody is a lot of fun, and parody and satire is extremely important, and parody is extremely important to make your genre believable. And the other one would be Blazing Saddles for obvious reasons. Just also the satire. If you don't have healthy satire, your genre will die. To which I say, it's been a long time since Spaceballs. How's Star Wars doing? It's been a long time since that. Yeah. And for Marvel movies, Deadpool might have bought them some extra time, but now that they control their own satire, if they don't let him really satirize them, they'll lose credibility. So the satires are important too.
Yeah. Support Your Local Sheriff is another one.
Oh my God, I love that
James
movie.
Garner.
Which one do you like better? Support Your Local Sheriff or Support Your Local Gunfighter? It's the same movie, right? They're free on YouTube all the time, people.
Yeah.
Check out YouTube for this. Oh my God, I love that movie.
Funny movies. Yeah, I like the first one.
Female lead? Is it Doris Day? And she's really, guys, like we didn't know that Doris Day was really good looking. Doris Day is really freaking good looking, guys. Just watch this movie with Rock Hudson, with not Rock Hudson, with the straight version of Rock Hudson, James Garner. He's not related to Jennifer Garner, but he's cooler, even though they have the same initials. He would have beat up Ben Affleck very easily.
Yeah.
So I guess
Joan
honorable
Hackett.
mentions, if you want.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's that one?
No, that's the and Support Your Local Sheriff. That's the woman.
Is that his name? Oh, is that her name? Okay,
Joan Hackett.
And so he's in a lot of movies with Doris Day too. I don't know why I thought it was her. I don't really. I just know she's really hot.
Yeah. Yeah, what was yours?
So I have another spaghetti western, which is another loose adaptation of Yojimbo, which did not generate a lawsuit because it was much looser. There's actually a series of films and homages to this film. It's called Django in 1966, directed by Sergio Corbucci. There were several sequels back then. It's basically Frank Nero is in it. It's probably Frank Nero's biggest film, and it's the same plot as Jimbo, essentially, right? Tarantino's Django Unchained was a tribute to this film, basically, and there were several sequels, like Django Returns Again. I don't remember all the names of the sequels. Django Fights Back, and how these Italian spaghetti westerns parody stuff, But I think there was even a TV show.
He shows up in Django Unchained. He's at the bar where they have the fight between the two, where Candy is making them fight, and he's at the bar and he's like Jamie Foxx is there, and he's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Django," and he looks at him. He's like, "J is silent." And he goes, "I know," and just walks away. That's that guy, that actor. They brought him back for that.
Well, it's not Frank Nero who plays him, though. Oh no, it is Frank. Is it Frank Nero? Maybe it is. I have to remember. I have to go back and watch it. If it was actually Frank Nero who played him, but the character does show up. You're right. Yeah, the character does show up. So there's that. So Django, all the Django sequels, obviously, and then some of the honorable mentions. We'll do some comedies: Cat Ballou and Blazing Saddles. Two really good.
Cat Ballou's fun.
Yeah.
Jane Fonda's pretty hot in that one, whether you like her or not.
Yeah, you don't have to like an actress to,
she's hot in that movie.
Yeah, she was a young hottie.
Yeah, another old one. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a good one.
Yeah.
I was waiting for someone to say that one. That one is an extremely deep movie that is also just happens to be set in the West. We could have had that same movie take place and maybe somewhere else. That movie was really, really, really good. And for those who don't know, what happens is somebody shoots a known miscreant, and there's some confusion over who, like, it's a Han shot first, like who did it kind of thing. And the fame of getting rid of this terrible person who was wrecking up this town propels the guy to political office. And at the end of the movie, we find out there's a little more to it.
Yeah.
It's really well
excellent.
done. Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, correct?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Yep. And we
And,
talked
Lee
about
Marvin.
we talked about another one
Lee,
last
Lee
week.
Marvin's Liberty Valance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's great in that.
I was like, Jacob, we talked another last week. 310 to Yuma.
Yeah.
Which one?
The original. Yeah.
Hateful Eight. Anybody? Or is that just a movie that happens to? Is that just a Quentin Tarantino movie that happens to be a Western? Like Django Unchained is a real Western. Hateful Eight, I don't know. It's just a movie that happens in the West.
Well,
right?
Django Unchained is
Yeah.
an actual spaghetti Western. It's deliberately a spaghetti Western, right? So
Yeah.
Right. There's a few things in that make it into a spaghetti Western.
He has a high enough Italian quotient in it, you know.
Yeah.
He also, I believe that someone created a matrix. Like you need like name of a gunfighter, son of a gunfighter, daughter of a gunfighter, former gunfighter, all in your movie. So like for a moment we see what's her name, Joan of Arcadia, looking out a window as they're about to have the confrontation with the sheriff, not the marshal. Remember
And
that?
of course, Tarantino himself is part Italian, so
I guess we'd have to be, yeah. But we also like, but right before Luke Duke shows up, we see what's her name, the chick who was Joan of Arcadia. Her father was like in westerns and played a gunfighter, and she's only in that movie and she hasn't done anything else. I think since she's in that movie just for that 1 second to satisfy that thing about making it a complete western.
Yeah. And another spaghetti Western that needs to be mentioned is another Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
The
Soundtrack
soundtrack
is in that one. Charles Bronson's in that one.
Yeah.
Origin Tale for the Man Without a Name.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, that's it. I thank y'all for coming on. Had a really good discussion. This was a good time. Thanks to the chat for hanging with us. And anything you guys want to plug, or Matt, what do you got coming?
So I do my weekly Friday Fandemonium at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a live stream. I'm on a bunch of Jacob stuff every Tuesday and Saturday. We have Lawrence of Arabia coming up this Tuesday, and I got to watch that tomorrow or Monday. First time in like 10 or 12 years, maybe more. I just posted my Reacher season 1 episode 7 review the other yesterday, this morning. Also the Yu Hakusho episode 5 review went up. My Monarch review will be up probably tomorrow or Monday. My Sharp review for season 2 episode 1 was up the last couple of days. Have another one of those out soon. And I think Jake will both be on Roman's show on Thursday. So there we go.
Yeah. Teague, what do you got?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm your buddy Admiral Teag. I branched out into westerns and military movies. Every once in a while, you can catch me with the guys from Pop Culture Minefield, or you can catch my channel. It's called, oddly enough, would you believe it or not, Admiral Teag. One thing that we started out on was calling out the bad Star Trek we're getting these days, but that has seemingly somewhat taken care of itself. So we're tackling other pop culture topics. There's my link in the chat. If anyone wants to check me out, please go ahead. I'd be very grateful to have you with me, and I'll be on tomorrow night around 7:30. Hopefully, by which time I'll have a plan for what I'm going to do tomorrow night at 7:30.
Nice.
There you go.
Well, yeah, I got
Excuse me.
Well, actually, Monday, I've got an ice storm coming through. So as long as I don't lose power from that, I'll be Tuesday. I'll be doing Lawrence of Arabia, which will be fun. Matt will be there, and
That's well,
then I'll
Matt.
be
No,
on.
Matt and I are having the ice storm on Tuesday, so he may not be
Oh,
there.
Yeah, but I'm all hardwired. Like I've, you know, they're used to it in New Jersey where I live, with having like multiple feet of snow and ice coming down.
Okay.
It's rain that
Yeah,
gets us, like Hurricane Sandy, that
Yeah.
knocks us out like that.
Yeah.
The horrible ice storm will be in the New York, New Jersey area, or on Tuesday. We get that.
Yeah,
Crazy.
you don't want to go out in that weather. You know what I mean? Like that's the worst. But
Oh no.
you know, we've worn down enough that we could tolerate that weather, like as far as surviving with power and internet and all that. But if
Yeah.
that bloody rain comes, and if you live in any place that's been filled in, you just get flooded. You look out your door, you see 2 feet of water rolling down the street. You know.
Yeah.
When you watch Lawrence
and
of
then-
Arabia, think about what would have happened if Obi-Wan had done that to Luke.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I will also be on.
forcefulness.
Yeah. And then I will also be on Roman's show Thursday. And then next week I'll be going over the series The Pacific.
I love that. Good luck with that. Enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's a good show.
John Bazzoni.
This
Thanks,
one's a
everybody,
lot darker than Band of Brothers.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank y'all for coming on. Had a good time, good discussion. Thanks to the
Thanks
chat.
for having me.
And yeah, and we will all see
goodbye,
y'all
everybody. Thank you for coming by.
next time. Later.